This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Sharing the love, spreading the light in real time. Friday night love stream.
Very happy to have a guy we instantly resonated with. Unbiased and on the fence. I'm talking about Shane C. Robinson. And his purpose is to rise above the worldviews that are designed to separate us so we can unite as one.
Sometimes you have to sort of take a step back, and I think Unbiased and on the Fence is a really, really good title for your show, because you are in the central point when you're unbiased and on the fence. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you're indecisive. It means you are taking the central point and you're seeing the multiple perspectives.
Unbiased and on the fence.
If you haven't checked Unbiased on the Fence, go and check his channel out. You might like it.
From Unbiased on the Fence, Shane.
If this much sincerity enters your life, come to this much. What I know, I know. What I do not know, I do not know. I don't believe anything, I don't disbelieve anything. I'm willing to look at everything. You will become a sensible human being.
Have you checked out our website?
Visit us on the web at uotf.net. You're listening to The Love Stream.
All around the world in real time.
I want to thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, and for those who support this channel financially. Thank you. Lots of love and light to everyone out there.
Your calls, your stories, on air. You're listening to The Love Stream.
Sharing the love and spreading the light all around the world. This is Unbiased and on the Fence.
Unbiased and on the fence.
What is up, everybody? How is your Friday evening? Or we see we have Nicola in here, and she is from the future in Australia, of course. Welcome everyone in the chat. Lots of love out to the world. This is Friday night, of course, and I don't have any callers yet, but I do have some announcements to make while we do get some callers in here. Dolly Daydream, she is, wow, you're up late, huh? She is calling from the UK, or tuning in from the UK. Check out her channel if you haven't already. Whoops. And, okay. So it looks like people are calling in. I did want to make an announcement, though. We are not meeting at the Peace of Mind bookstore here in Tulsa on 1111. They won't have the camera set up, and they're not prepared really for a group. So I'm going to have a place by this Sunday. I've got a few places to check out. But I will send out an email for those who join the Tulsa Get Together mailing list. I will send out an email letting you know where and when. It's still going to be 11:11 afternoon time, but I just I want to nail down a place this weekend for sure. So the get-together's happening, but just not at that store where we thought it was happening. Somebody had sent me an email saying that for some reason their website was down or something, and so as far as I know, they're still in business, so you can still check it out if you are here local and you want to get one of those aura images or whatever. So let me see here. The same way, if you want to get together for New Year's in Austin, Texas, you can send me an email as well that says Austin Get Together. And if you want to do both, then just send me two different emails, one that says Tulsa Get Together in the subject line and one that says Austin Get Together in the subject line, and then I will know to add you to the information when it goes out. So Tulsa is going to be at 11:11, and the Austin is going to be New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. It's going to be a bigger event, more worth traveling to, like a 3-day, 4-day. We'll see how long it goes, but definitely New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And let me see. If you did call in and you do want to speak, just raise your hand. I think all you have to do is hit *2 to raise your hand, and I know you're not just listening. because you can just call in and listen if you want to save your data and you just want to use your phone, because sometimes people have unlimited phone but not unlimited data. So because the show does run a little bit long, if that's a way that you want to listen in and save on your data, you can do it that way. I see we have Atsuko in the chat. Let me share an image with you guys because I thought this was so cool, because Megan contacted me from New York and she's like, you know what, I'm going to be out near Atsuko. I want to see about maybe meeting up with her. And I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. So I connected the two of them and they met together, and I have this picture that they sent me of them getting together. I thought it was so awesome. Let me pull it up here. There they are, Atsuko and Megan, two light workers meeting. And I feel honored that they, met from the channel or whatever. So get-togethers are happening all over the country, and lots of love and light to these two ladies. That's so cool. I love the rainbow rays coming in around you two as well. Okay. All right. I do have some callers in here. Nobody with their hand up. I don't want to unmute you because you might be like on the road just wanting to listen or something. And so, yeah, I don't want to unmute you if you're not wanting to talk. So just hit *2 on your phone. Or if you're joining from the website, I think there's an actual raise your hand button that you can push. Okay, here we have a caller. Let's see what we have here. From a 321 area code.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Who am I talking to?
This is Ronnie in Florida. Hey.
Hey.
I figured I'd help warm up the airwaves.
I appreciate that, because I was thinking, I'm going to have a short night tonight. I'm just kidding. It's like I'm just going to hop in the chat.
Not allowed. It just takes a few minutes for people to feel like calling, I guess. So, yeah, I had a crazy week with the dog, but he's doing good. We just brought him home from the vet's office, so this is his first night back home.
Oh, that's so rough.
So
it's like your baby.
Yeah.
I know how
it is. He is. He's 4 years old, so this is kind of young for this to happen, But that's, there's pros and cons with getting him neutered. We were considering breeding him, so we didn't get him neutered. But now there's no choice. So no puppies. That's the only sad thing, really. Otherwise, as long as his health improves, then it'll be okay. They neuter so the prostate will shrink.
Right.
And, so hopefully he'll get back to normal and be his normal happy self in a couple of weeks here. So it was a very stressful week, so I'm really, really just dying to sit back and chill, so other people have to call so I can just chill out.
I think everybody enjoys chilling out. Yeah. I'm like, man, I need to have somebody else take over so I can chill in the chat sometime,
Yeah, definitely. So
that's cool. What's your dog's name?
His name, it's spelled like Caesar, sort of, but it's a Turkish name because he's a Turkish Kangol dog.
Oh.
And it's Jesser. Yeah, you say it, Jesser.
Jesser.
So
okay.
And he lost like 15 pounds in a week, just being sick, running a fever, yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. So it'll take another week or two, and they'll be back up to normal then?
Yeah. Hopefully, they say that, once they neuter, it's about 2 weeks, and the prostate shrinks, and then he should be, because it gets enlarged, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the order that it happens, but there's an enlargement, and that puts pressure on all the other organs around there, the bladder and the urethra and the colon,
mm-hmm.
and then they can get infection, and he got infection in his prostate. So I didn't even know that was possible. But
well, how did you know something was wrong with him?
And it happened. He just wasn't himself. He just was not acting his happy self, and he actually snapped at me one night, and I was like, whoa, that is so unusual. He didn't break skin or anything, but he just didn't want to move. And it was like he was drugged almost,
Right.
So his behavior was just bizarre. So I told my husband the next day, and I was like, something is wrong with him, and, I think he needs to go to the vet. And we took him, and he had a fever. So it was like, well, that explains a lot right there.
Oh, yeah.
But then finding out why he had a fever was the thing. So that took a couple of days. And then they had to verify it with an ultrasound. They can't, because of the hip bones, they can't do, it's not really useful to do an x-ray. It's better to do an ultrasound. So they did that, and as soon as we got the results, it was like, okay, this is definitely what's happening, and he has to get neutered. So we just left him there, and they did the surgery later that day. So that was yesterday. So, and just feeling like on pins and needles all day. Okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, but he did good. Yeah, he went through the surgery fine, and, he's obviously not a happy camper at this point, but he's home, so now he can relax and just chill out.
Probably out of pain now, or at least the pain's different, I guess, Probably not as deep as
sure
it was.
It's worse.
Oh, you think it's worse now? I was thinking infection usually makes
sure
it.
it is.
Yeah. I was thinking that's probably why he was snapping at you.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm sure that, once because he's on, like, a ton of antibiotics, so we're
no pain meds, though,
give him yogurt. He's got pain med, an anti-inflammatory, and 2 different antibiotics. So I had to print out a list, because I'll be like, wait a minute, which one did I give him last? Yeah. So they're all at different times, of course, yeah. So it's like caring for somebody who just came home from the hospital, really. It's a mess,
Well, that's cool. Is that your only dog?
Yeah, right now we had a little girl. She was a small shepherd. She was beautiful. Oh, my God. She was like one of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen. But she was about 12. She just started having, like, weird lumps, and we kept taking her to the vet, and, I think he suspected that she had cancer, but that there was really nothing that was going to get done for it.
Right.
So, she just, deteriorated, and she was in pain. So when the pain became the thing, it's like, okay, you can't smell anything, you're miserable, you're unhappy, you're in pain, when there's no quality of life left. I don't have any problem with ending, that you can drag things out too far, I think. And it's hard. It really is. I bawled my eyes out for days. But, the pet has to be the first consideration, Do they have quality of life left? Yeah, then it's got to be the end. And I want, for me it's easy because I want the same thing. I don't want to be kept alive, in a state of misery. What is that? I don't want to be tortured. I just, just let me go. I know there's something after here. I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of people are. That, in fact, so much money is spent, like, just in the very last part of people's lives, like in the medical field, just trying to hang on to what they can. And many times it's, like, not even worth living because it's so painful and everything, But, yeah, I can understand people being nervous about it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting to me. I know my mom was, like, super, super Christian religious person. She had really, really deep faith, and yet she was, like, she was this kind of person. She just clung onto life.
Yeah.
She just didn't want to let go of it. And I don't know why. With her faith, she should have known it's better over there. I had a dog before. This was years ago, and I'd had him for 13 years. And he got old, and, he was miserable. When he couldn't even step, down a 6-inch step to go out to the patio, it was like, okay, this has to end now. This is, he's miserable. There's no joy in this dog's life left. So I had him put to sleep, and I actually asked the vet if they would come to the house because he was really, really shy dog and had a lot of anxiety. So they came to my house, and they gave him the shot there right in the living room, and I was holding him. And, you know, I was going to bury him over at my mom's yard, and they helped me put his body in the car, and I was driving, and I was bawling. I couldn't even hardly see the road. I was crying so hard. And all of a sudden, this wave hit me. I mean, literally, it was like being hit by a wave in the ocean. You know, it just, like, knocked me back into my seat, and it was pure joy, just like delight. And I felt it. I felt his energy. I knew it was him. And it was like, this dog is so happy to be free of that old body, you know? And so, you know, that's when, you know, I never was scared of dying, but that was when I was like, wow, you know, it must be really good to be going from here. So
I experienced that with my dad, too, as well. I mean, I was bawling, too, but it was just joy at the fact that he wasn't suffering anymore, and I could just feel that wave that you're talking about of comfort, just that final goodbye, you know, and I let him go, and it was, I knew, you know, it was just kind of selfish of me to just want him around suffering like that, so it wasn't really hard to let him go when I shifted my perspective a little bit, you know what I mean, from his point of view.
Yeah, and they have a point of view. They definitely have a point of view. They maintain consciousness. I mean, if a dog can, I have no doubt that a person is too. So, you know, that's, you know, it's sad. It's a hard part of life to talk about death and endings, but, you know, it is part of life. And we are so, as a society, you know, we're like so ill-prepared and ill-informed. So, you know, it's uncomfortable subject for a lot of people, but it's so important because it happens to everybody. And like with my mom, you know, she had a living will, and thank God she did, because even with that, it was still hard to make the decision at the end. Even though I had talked to her, I knew what she wanted. She had put it into writing so that, you know, it was there looking me in the face that, no, you know, I don't want to be kept alive like some kind of, you know, meat thing, you know, but it was still hard to do. So it's really, really important for everybody to have those talks with your family and make sure you get that living will and put it into writing. Make a video if you have to, you know.
That's true, because it's hard enough as it is, but that makes it a lot better, because you're having to deal with all that while you're grieving and in shock many times if it's something sort of unexpected. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, that's, you know, the hospital, you know, I got there, I walked in and didn't even have a time to assimilate what was going on. And they were like, oh, well, you know, we're going to do this procedure, but we need your permission. And I'm like, well, wait, you know, what is that procedure? What are you doing? Because I knew, you know, if she was at a certain point that she did not want to be kept alive. And she was there. I mean, you know, she couldn't even focus her eyes on anything. She had had a stroke. So I knew, but it was like, okay, you know, this is the chance. They have to take the blood off of her brain and give her a chance at life. That was something I felt like I needed to do. So, you know, that helped me more than it helped my mother.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, you know, talk to your families. Understand what you want and understand what they want. Yeah,
it's easy to get ready when you know, if you do have cancer or you do know you're going to be dying soon, but everyone's going to die sooner or later, assuming that we aren't just zapped out of here or something. So it's something that we should definitely be prepared for at any age, really.
Yeah, I agree. But, yeah, it is kind of a dark subject, so I'll have to see if I can think of something a little lighter for the love stream tonight.
Well, it is like you were saying earlier, though. It is a beautiful thing. It's just from our perspective here, it seems like it's this horrible thing. This person's going away on a vacation and never coming back, but they're really going somewhere that you'll be going soon. They're just going there ahead of you. So it's almost like a vacation that you're going to be meeting up with them later on. So it's all about perspective and how you look at it, you know.
That's true. That is the brighter side. There is a brighter side, and it's just on the other side. Can't see it.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's there.
And I always tell people, they're like, well, how do you know you're not, wrong about it? I'm like, well, if I'm wrong, I won't know, right? It's like, if this is really the end, then I'll live happily expecting something else. And if I'm wrong, no one will know I'm wrong. It'll just be that things discontinue, but at least I'll be happier believing in something more, So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But, that's the thing, is that I don't doubt it. I never did.
Yeah.
That, to me, is weird. That, it wasn't just my religious upbringing. My parents were Catholic. They were Orthodox Catholic, but there was no Orthodox church around us, so we went to the Roman Catholic Church. And I rejected it. I mean, I was a first grader arguing with the nun about what Jesus meant,
Yeah.
So, I used to skip out. I would leave and go walk around on the grounds outside, and they finally just quit making me go because I wasn't going anyway. I was just, leaving. And so, I never had doubt about certain things. I always knew that the God that I knew did not have anything to do with creating fear state to coerce people into saying, oh, I'm with God or Jesus, I knew that was wrong. So, I just was like, no, that's not God. Whatever is in the Bible that's going around killing people and saying he's the jealous God, that's not God.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is, but that's not the God I know.
Totally. Yeah, and when you really think of those being really very human emotions we're trying to work to overcome those emotions, and to think that God hasn't figured it out yet, if he did have to figure it out to begin with, I don't think it's something that he would have to deal with. But, I think that's sort of part of being in this duality that we find ourselves in, that we are viewing others as separate, but God already knows we're all part of him, and so what's there to be jealous about,
Exactly. That's right. We're all on your side because we're on our side or your side. So here's the thing. I always thought of this, that, okay, Jesus was apparently living a life according to a prophecy, right? And he had to come to an end, and that end was, pretty specific, and because he had to be betrayed. And so the guy who betrayed him, Judas, was he serving evil by betraying him, or was he serving the higher good to make something happen? So what kind of a soul do you have to be to volunteer to be somebody who would be reviled through centuries out of love to make something happen, Yeah. So I always wanted to throw that out and see what people think of it, because I think, that must have been so hard to do. Even if he thought he was doing it easy, to volunteer to do that, knowing what was going to come in the future.
Yeah, I think the probably the best explanation, or the one that made the most sense to me, because everything gets twisted, was the Law of One was talking about how, and I think it's really an archetype for people nowadays too. When you look at what Judas thought Jesus was going to be compared to what Jesus actually came to be, and he just had this vision of him being this ruler with angels at his beck and call, that if anybody messed with him, he could just, strike him with a bolt of lightning and deal with them that way. And I think that's a lot of how the church today views it. It's like God's going to come back and you know, Jesus is going to come back. He is God. He's, you know, God in flesh, and he's going to come back, and he's going to, you know, hit all the sinners with bolts of lightning and cast them into hell with the demons and the devils. And they've got this very...
Might you, and might you too.
Right. Yeah. So I think what had happened with Judas is, I don't think what happened is what he, or at least this is how the Law of One puts it. He didn't expect for Jesus to just give himself over and be crucified, and that's why he ended up going and hanging himself on the trees, because he was just completely confused about how things were supposed to play out, because a lot of the Old Testament, if you can imagine back then, or the Old Testament prophecies would talk about sort of the time of Jesus, from the church point of view, I'm talking now, is like the time of Jesus, and then the end times when Jesus comes back again. A lot of that was sort of meshed all together into this one event for them. So they didn't see it as two separate events. They saw it only after, you know, he was crucified and rose and ascended, that, oh, he's going to come again. And then that's when all these other prophecies are going to be fulfilled of him sort of bringing the iron hammer down, or iron fist or whatever, down on the evildoers and all of this stuff. But from their point of view, they thought all of that prophecy was being fulfilled at that time. So Judas just thought he was helping the process along according to the Law of One, and that, you know, they wouldn't be able to corner him. In fact, he had already gotten away from them numerous times when they tried to capture him. He just would disappear into the crowd, and he was just untouchable. But at that point, it was his time, and he, you know, he just went on and
he chose.
Yeah.
Yeah, he chose to be captured. Yeah, that was pretty clear.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting to think of it like that, because that would explain why, you know, when he had in mind what he was going to do, and Jesus said, "Go and do what you must," you know, he thought, oh, you know, he knows what I'm going to do already. Let's go do this, and we're going to show them, you know. I mean, if you think about it, even I think Peter, like, cut off the ear of one of the soldiers when they first approached, and Jesus, like, healed it back on, I think was how one of the scriptures read, or I think it was Peter, but one of them, and he held it back on, and, you know, so they all thought, you know, hey, it's time to fight, you know. I mean, we're fighting with the Son of God here, you know, but it wasn't like that at all. It was the turn the other cheek time, you know.
Yeah, I love when he told them to go sell their clothes if they wanted a sword.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, Paul really didn't. Paul sort of helped that whole idea of, you know, if you see pictures of Paul, you know, being the Roman leader or whatever at that time, and, you know, they always show him with a sword, and he was sort of this violent person, you know. I mean, shortly before he started writing these letters, he was killing Christians and stuff. And, you know, I think he actually did have an experience on the road to Damascus. I just think it was maybe an attempt to infiltrate the church, and, you know, he didn't know any better of it, because there's a lot of scriptures that seem positive and good. You know, he was the one that wrote the scripture about Jesus being the firstborn among many brothers that I always refer to. So I feel like he could have been deceived himself. I don't feel like he was purposely maybe deceiving people, but I feel like it was an infiltration into the church, because if you see the church of today, I've said this many times, it's more of a product of Paul rather than Jesus, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And he had definite biases, you know, that reflected his upbringing and his culture more so than, you know, what Jesus had. Yeah. You know, Jesus was really, really egalitarian for somebody in now, let alone in that age, you know, in that era. They were a very different society. Yeah. So, you know, I always try and look at the Bible or any kind of old book like that through the lens of what was their life like in that time. You know, what were their beliefs as a society? What was normal to them? How far could you push them, you know, to be different from what they were, to reject their society? So, yeah, it's fascinating. It's really...
And the way, you know, we've been sort of lied to about just a lot. They took a lot of things out about how Jesus treated women back then, too, as well. It made it more like, I mean, some of it still came through, the way he adored women. But, you know, a lot of, like, Paul seems to treat women, you know, as second-rate citizens compared to Jesus. Where if you get into some of
different.
these writings of Jesus, he wasn't like that at all. In fact, some of his disciples were women. When you get into it, Mary Magdalene and stuff like that. So it just makes you wonder, how much of it did they sort of, because that whole women being second-rate citizens, it wasn't really that long ago. I remember learning in art class that I always like to connect things with history so I can kind of like remember them better. And I remember thinking, and it was probably 5 or 6 years ago when I was in college for art, I found out it had only been 100 years since women could vote. And I was like, what? Really? It was 1917 or it was 19 something. And I remember thinking, wow, that really wasn't that long ago, that women weren't treated the same. And it's still going on in many parts of the world. So Jesus was definitely ahead of his time.
Yeah, way ahead of his time. Although, I guess his time was his time, so he was there in his time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised in the end. That's a lot of people have this idea that when you die, it's what happens to you is relevant to what your beliefs were.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you expect to see Buddha, you see Buddha. If you expect to see Jesus, you see Jesus. And I'm really curious about that because I have no expectation. So am I going to see anything at all?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because I often think that too, and I'm like, well, I'm sort of so open-minded about it. I don't know. I might just see a whole grouping of them all. Yeah, we're all here waiting.
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yes, Jesus was definitely a rebel, and that's sort of missing in the whole story of him today. Terry saying in the chat, Jesus is my guru.
I'm sorry, he's helping the dog through the door. His giant cone around his head.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got caught on the door. My husband took him out to walk. Well,
I do appreciate you calling in and helping getting the show on the road here.
Well, good. I hope you have more callers lined up. And you have a lovely evening. And hello, everybody in the chat. I love you all. Mwah.
Thanks for calling.
Have a great weekend.
Lots of love to you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Your calls, your stories, on air. You're listening to the Love Stream.
Sharing the love and spreading the light all around the world. This is Unbiased and On the Fence. Well, I was going to go back to the phone lines, but I see looks like everyone hung up. I feel rejected now. Oh, we got Sherry in here. I think we're holding the space. The higher ups, I should say, are holding the space for Sherry's daughter to call in, perhaps. Oh, now the pressure's really on. She's probably freaking out, huh? No pressure. But, yeah, Jesus, the whole story of Jesus is really a fascinating topic. I could go on and on, probably forever, with the story of Jesus, because he is like my hero. He's who I strive to be. Like, out of everybody that I've ever known in history, he's like the guy. I mean, I've watched other channels and they're like, store up on food and ammo. And I'm like, I don't need ammo. If somebody wants to come and kill me and take my food, they can come and kill me and take my food. I'm not going to fight for food and kill somebody over food, So that's just how I am. I just hope they do it quickly, But at the same time, I don't really cling to this world either. I'm excited to see what's next. Not in a suicidal sort of way or anything, but I feel like when it's my time to go, I'll go, and I'll happily go. So, it's not valid with your phones. You can do it from the internet as well if you go to that website, Nicola. That might be easier. Yes, Darby, Sherry and Darby. She was going to call in and talk. I don't know if she's too busy, though. Let me see. Yeah, I'm sort of a passive viewer of a lot of YouTube channels because there's some channels that I feel like, they're, they're good people. They're doing what they feel is best, but they spread fear a little bit, and where I don't think fear should need to be a part of it. But it's all part of that uncertainty that you see. When we look around, we see so much uncertainty, but I also see, between the synchronicities that I experience and the way things just fall into place for me, I know I have higher help, benevolent, loving higher help, and I'm just not worried about. I know, I really do view this whole thing like a game, and I know I'm not out of here until it's time for me to get out of here. And so I just don't worry about stuff like that. I think it's a good idea to keep water on hand. I don't have like a week's worth of water on hand. I got maybe a couple of days worth, but that's just really like if the power goes out or something happens, it's nice to have some water. I mean, you got to have water to survive, but I'm not storing up, as they say, treasures in heaven, or on earth, for some kind of disaster or anything like that. If I run out of food and water, then it must be my time to go. And if it's not my time to go and I haven't stored up food and water, I feel like it'd be provided, even if it's got to start gushing from a rock or something. I honestly don't worry about that stuff. And I don't think, from my point of view, I don't want to be, storing up guns and ammo. That's not the direction I want to go with this world. And if that's the direction it goes, I'd rather just be killed and I can get the heck out of here. So watch from the other side, as they say. But I feel like people are coming around. People are waking up. People are doing their job. So even on those channels I'm talking about that I enjoy watching, that they do sort of have that uncertainty and push that fear, just not really fear-mongering. I don't feel like they're purposely trying to get views from pushing fear. I just feel like they're really sort of getting tossed about in the waves of uncertainty, and, they're just being honest. So, I don't know. I enjoy the information. They're still waking people up. Maybe some people need that little jarring to wake them up. I know people wake up from all sorts of ways. I've been slowly waking up all these years, and, when I had the Mandela effect, even with that, I never really felt fear. I felt excitement. I felt like, what the heck, just to see reality changing and everything, which is mind-blowing. But for me, it was exciting. It really pulled me out of my dark night of the soul in many ways, because everything had just become so meaningless and everything. So I want to say that I've just always been that kind of person. If I hear the tornado sirens going off, I get excited. I don't like freak out, and my wife does. I have to calm her down. I'm like, how many times have those things gone off and nothing happened? Let's not really start feeling fearful until the house is getting ripped apart. That's sort of how I view it. But I've always wanted to see a tornado. I don't want to see it destroying people's homes and stuff, but it'd be really cool to see it out in the field or something, and checking it out that way. But I've always lived for, excitement and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just have an optimistic look at even the bad things, and I feel like I'm just a much happier person when I do that. It's part of viewing life as a fun game and just playing it the best way I can play it. And I was talking about it the other day, when people trigger you and you feel triggered and angry and you want to respond, you just take that higher perspective and think, you know what? I'm not going to react like my reaction wants me to react. I'm going to handle this much, much differently. And then that's why I refer back to Jesus, because I think he did get upset a little bit with the money changers in the temple or whatever, but for the most part, he always took the high road. And I think it's a great example of how we should be living and stuff. All right, so I want to go back to the phone lines. 360 area code. You're alive on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hello, it's T. Taylor.
Hey, T. Taylor, how are you?
I'm good. How is everybody?
Oh, wonderful. I'm just typing your name
Oh,
in here. How are things going for you?
fantastic. It's been crazy. Just kidding, a little bit. I know a lot of people are probably shaking their heads yes right now and like, oh, you know it, girl. Like, it is a lot going on. Oh my gosh. So I just kind of wanted to touch on something real quick because I know that this has been hitting quite a few of us in the YouTube community. And I have been trying to upload a video for 2 days and have met so much interference that it is crazy. Like, I've never scheduled what they call the premiere now. We have that new button, so you can be basically doing a live stream, right? And I have an internet connection all the time. As soon as I go to upload the video and I schedule it, this is why I tell people I don't schedule live streams, my internet connection goes out. And I'm like, what? Because there was some important information I needed to give out. And then it's like, okay. And then as soon as I cancel it, it comes back on. And then I schedule it again, and it goes out. So needless to say, 2 days later, we're like, what's going on? But I just wanted to let everybody know, because the video will be out here very soon, but there are some really great energies coming in. So I know everybody's kind of at this tough moment, and one of the cards that I pulled is called the Swan, and it's all about this physical and not only physical transformation, it's about, the Swan saying, I surrender and let this, they thought they had an ugly, duckly body, and then they became this, long-necked, beautiful swan. But they kind of had to surrender and say, I'm not going to try and control this. I'm just going to let it go. And that's kind of what a lot of people are doing right now. So I just want everybody to say that there are amazing, beautiful energies coming in. And so just hold on at the moment. I know there's a lot of chaos and a lot of karma coming up for release, you could say, but yeah, just hold on, because there are some really great things coming in. So you just hang in there, I guess is my
hang on and enjoy the ride, right?
People. Yeah, and just try and see when something comes up that seems like a problem or seems like a frustration, try and look at it a different way. Try to look at it as an opportunity, and try and say, well, maybe this is just not the divine timing, because I used to get upset all the time if something like that were to happen to me. And so now I know sometimes that's just not the right timing, and I just need to wait a second, because it will be even better later. So instead of getting the frustration going, just try and look at everything with, just a happy moment. But I did just want to touch base with you, because I've been seeing so many people talking about the physical symptoms and that they're struggling. And so just, there's a lot of physical symptoms happening right now that a lot of people are just recognizing. So a lot of people are going through the nauseousness. A lot of people are having the digestive issues. A lot of people are having the fatigue and the tiredness. And just trust your body is what I would say. I know it's difficult, but just trust your body and what it needs. If you need to sleep, if you need to take a day off work, take a day off work, Yeah. How are you feeling?
I've been feeling energized. In fact, I pulled up the Schumann resonance to show everybody how it's going off the chart, because earlier I felt jittery, and I'm like, why do I feel so amped up and jittery? And I hadn't had any caffeine, and I'm like, but I was feeling kind of sleepy too, so I knew it wasn't like I forgot that I had caffeine or whatever. But I looked at the energies, and wow, it's like we are getting blasted right now. It was pretty calm, and then all of a sudden it's like all of this white area that you see here is like it's off the charts. And it's been like this. It's been going crazy. Charts.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And that explains, because I was feeling the same thing. So I'm so glad you said that, because I thought, I haven't had any coffee, but I'm feeling a little, it's almost like I'm tongue-tied. Like I keep saying, I try to get words out, but it's almost like I'm mixing words together. I don't know if anybody else is feeling a little dyslexic as well, but I've been doing that since this started too. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. So yeah, wild times, and I think you're right, just to shift your perspective, because that's really all it takes. I had that epiphany years ago where the shower went cold, and I got angry at whoever made the shower get cold on me, and then I took this third person point of view and laughed at how funny I must have looked trying to get away from the cold water. And I went from angry to laughing, and ever since then it was like that little lesson really shifted the way I just view the world in general. Because if someone approaches you and triggers you, say they start calling you names or something, you don't have to get triggered by that. I mean, that's sort of our natural. We could get taken aback by it a little bit and we're like, what the heck, but it's really up to us how we choose to respond to that. Are we going to get angry, or are we just going to sort of take a step back and say, look, they must be having a really bad day or something. I don't know what's wrong with them, but it's not going to pour over into my day because I'm the sovereign being that is controlling how I react, and it's like,
exactly.
It seems so simple, but, and it really is when you shift your perspective, it really is a simple thing, but it's just the way we've been taught,
It's so true, and it's so pertinent for right now. It's such a perfect thing that you just said, because right now everybody's so trigger sensitive, because I tell people it used to be our reactions would be, like a 0 to 5 scale. But now if you let yourself get triggered, it's like quicksand real quick. And then it's before you know it, everything's falling apart around you. It's like if you let yourself get triggered, that can go from 0 to 5 to 0 to 15, really quick. We're off the scale, kind of like the Schumann resonance a little bit. And so it is really important just to kind of take a step back and say, is there anything I can get out of this? And if there's nothing I can do about it, just kind of move on and walk away, and just kind of take that perspective where you're just watching from the outside if you can. If we can keep those emotional triggers and, like you were saying, look at it, like how funny you must have looked, and if we can laugh, especially, it upsets that rhythm a little bit, you know what I mean? But there is a lot of interference I think a lot of people are experiencing. So just, you have all the power, like you just said, take your sovereignty back, and you just, like today I said, I have more power than you do. You can interfere, but you're not going to stop me. So you can delay me a second, but that's okay. That's okay, and I'll still get it out, and the message will still be there, and it will still be okay. But a lot of people, I think, need to hear that right now, because I think a lot of people are really struggling. I have a lot of people writing me just with the most insane life experiences that they're going through, and so I tell people right now, anything that we've kind of put on a shelf, anything that we've said that we've kind of dealt with, but we really didn't, right? We kind of lied to everybody, and we're like, we dealt with it. That's kind of falling off the shelf in our face right now in a weird, abstract way. Sometimes it's not coming through us, it's coming through others in our environment, but it still has to come up for release. So deal with your stuff is my best advice. Take another look at it, try and process it and release it, because we're not only clearing, like I tell most people watching your show are empathic. So not only are we, clearing for ourselves, we're clearing for the collective as well. And that's a lot of people who aren't wanting to look at their own stuff. So their worlds are kind of crashing a little bit around them because they haven't done the inner work. But because we love them, they're in our energy fields. So it just kind of becomes this issue where you're like, where are my boundaries again? And you kind of have to reset those boundaries. So that would just be my advice, is be very clear with your boundaries and just be as loving as you can, but try and help people where you can. I saw somebody earlier in the chat basically saying, commit those random acts of violence, and that's my best advice to everybody right now, is that is contagious. If we can all keep doing that, when you go out of your way to help somebody, whether it's just letting somebody go in line in front of you, and all of your viewers are so well aware of that, but it sets off this, it's like contagious, because then they go out of their way to help somebody else, even though they're not really sure why. They're just like, that felt really good, and then it goes on. And so that's my best advice for everybody right now, is just do the best that you can. But know that this crystalline DNA activation is not just a physical thing. It's a complete overhaul of your mental, emotional, psychic, all of those things coming in at the same time. So a lot of people are doing those visual perceptions. They're seeing things that they're not sure they're seeing, but they're like, I think I saw it, right? Yeah. And they're like, I don't want to tell anybody I saw it. I don't want to say that out loud, and they're looking around at everybody else to see if the people in their environment saw it too. And so just know that everybody's at different levels, and so you could be sitting at a table with 6 other people. You could see something, and the person sitting right next to you might not have that visual awareness or that mental or spiritual awareness to be able to see the same thing. So it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Just allow everybody to kind of be where they're at, and try and be as supportive as you can, as much as you can in the process, is what I would say. But I just kind of wanted to say hello, and I know that a lot of people are struggling, so I just wanted to say hang in there. There's some really beautiful energies coming in, and what I would also say too is that I know a lot of people's relationships that weren't necessarily in their best and highest good they were separating in the last few months. In the last, I'd say, 6 months, we've seen a lot of people leave relationships. And so what's coming in, though, is really beautiful, and you'll be attracting people who will support you for your best and highest good. You'll be developing new relationships, whether that's romantic, business, whatever that is for you, these people will be supportive of you, and you will lift each other in the most amazing and beautiful way. So I would just say hang on to those people, because I've had a lot of people write me that have 20-year marriages, and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. And I would say just hang in there, because good things are coming for everybody. I would say the scales are about to be weighed in the most beautiful way. So just, hang in there.
Beautiful.
That's what I would say.
Well said, T. Taylor. And I agree, just to go
there
back,
you go.
Go back to what you were saying there, because it was just how we should be responding, like what you were saying, where we do random acts of kindness. And a lot of times we'll allow ourselves to be triggered, and then we'll go around and do just the opposite. So somebody get us in a bad mood, and then we go into a different store maybe, and then we pass that little bit of anger on to the teller or whatever it is. And that's like exactly the opposite of what we should be doing as love light workers. We should be, being able to take that anger that's, kind of projected at us, but then transmute it and still go on about our day and spread the love and the light around to other people and not get triggered to where it ruins that. So that really, it's all connected, and I think what you're saying is beautiful information.
Oh, well, thank you very much. But I totally agree with you. And I'm guilty of that myself in just the last, couple of weeks. It's the triggers are harder, they're harder, and some of them are a little testy. It's like they're testing you to see if you're going to get triggered like you used to. It's like, are you going to get to that same spot that you used to be? And then, you have to catch yourself. Like you said, don't spread any more crap out there if you can help it. I mean, you got to feel what you feel at sometimes, but at the same time, like what you're saying, don't take that to somebody else. My motto has always been, try not to make anybody else's day worse for having encountered me. You know what I mean? Try not to bring any more crap to somebody else's world, because we don't know what somebody else is going through. And especially, we're aware. So we're so lucky because we are aware. Can you imagine being in this situation right now with all these things happening and really not being awake yet? I mean, that would be very, very difficult, because you don't understand what's going on. So we have to have sympathy and empathy for those people that just aren't quite there yet, because there is a subset of the population that will go through this. I tell people that third group is always like the third group who, you're standing on a rug and they're not even aware that you're standing on a rug and that rug's being rewoven, whereas the first couple of groups, we can see that it's being rewoven. We're aware of that. This third group is going to get, the whole thing's going to get done. They're going to look down and go, oh, I didn't even know that was possible, and so we have to be empathetic and empathic for them and just give them love that, that they just aren't quite ready. So, you just got to do what you got to do. But I love it. I'm not going to keep you on the line too long. I just wanted to pop in and say hello and tell everybody hang in there, because really good things are coming. I know it's been a little tough with that Scorpio energy coming in, but that's because some of that stuff, like I said, that we all put on a shelf and thought we dealt with, it had to be dealt with, even if we didn't want to. And so that had to come back in whatever way that was necessary to get our attention to deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I hope that most of that stuff is leaving now for most people. And, they can get on with some stuff. But I do think there's some really beautiful things coming. So I just wanted to say to the people that are struggling, hold on, hang in there, trust your body, do what your body's telling you to do. Because some people are resisting a little bit, but just, your body's going to make you, if you put something in it that it's not going to like with this new crystalline DNA, it will let you know. Like, you won't not know. You'll know pretty quick. You'll either have digestive issues, or you'll get a headache, or something will happen to get your attention that's like, I don't think my body likes that anymore, even though I used to love it.
Right.
I don't think it likes it anymore. So just trust your body and just kind of take the time that you need to do what you got to do. But I just wanted to say hi, and I love your show and love what you're doing. So keep it up.
Much love to you, T. Taylor. Thanks for coming on. We need to have you back, too, for an official show sometime.
Anytime. Yeah,
Alrighty.
Just email me. We'll get together. Okay, love you guys. Have a good night.
Alrighty, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's go.
You're listening to The Love Stream.
Unbiased and on the fence.
Going back to the phone lines, is this Darby?
Hi, Shane.
337. How are you?
Yep. I'm great, thanks. I took my cat to the vet today, so it's been a productive day.
Oh, nice. Let me...
Yep, how are you doing?
Oh, doing wonderful. Yeah, I told your mom not to let you chicken out. I'm like, no, she's got to call in. So, let me see here.
Yeah, I'm here. I really like Taylor a lot. She's great.
Oh, I know. She's got just such a great spirit about her. And when she gets into the chat, back into the chat, you guys, if you don't know about her channel, definitely click the 3 little dots and go check it out, because we're all on the same team here and working together. Yeah. And I got so many great comments when I had her on too.
Yeah, I see why.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so I got your name up there so people know. Just so anybody who doesn't know you by name, Darby, this is Overprotected, Sherry's daughter. She's been on the show when we were talking about Michael Jackson and stuff. So if you want to put a face with the voice, because I know a lot of people saw that. So, and Overprotected, if you would paste that link in there into the description of that Michael Jackson show, because that was such a great show with, I don't know, with all these synchronicities and things that you just wouldn't expect. You know, maybe if somebody was this huge, you know, Michael Jackson fan, but, you know, you were like more an 80s rock girl, and to have all this happen and then having your daughter along with you to verify it, and the whole Merkaba ship and all that, it was a great broadcast. So I've actually gone back and watched it again.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's very enjoyable.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so you have more Michael Jackson stuff, right? For
yes,
Halloween?
that's what I was here to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I just recently got a new job, and a really good friend of mine works there with me. I've known her since kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this Halloween party at work, and I decided I was going to go, but my good friend Mariah wasn't going to go. So I was like, okay, maybe not. Well, something in me was like, why not? Let me just go by myself. Who cares? So I go, and I didn't really know anybody. So I was just kind of hanging out by myself, and I was like, I think I'm going to go. And then Mariah texted me and said, I'm on my way, so stay. So I stayed. And right after she tells me that, this girl comes in, and she's dressed as the Thriller Michael Jackson. And everyone's outside, so she walks up from her car, and someone said, Michael Jackson's here. And she walked up and is just like, you know, the star of the show for a second, and they started playing Billie Jean, and she did a whole dance to this Billie Jean song for everyone. And I recorded some of it because, I mean, I can't make this up. And it was so cool. And then, like, she literally left after. Like, she was only there for, like, not even half an hour. And I was about to leave myself. So it was just really strange that I got to see that. You know, if I'd have left, I wouldn't have seen her. Or it's just crazy. It was really cool. And I felt like he was there.
Yeah. Now, actually, your mom had sent me that clip. I was just looking for it, and I can't find it. But I'd probably get a copyright hit anyway, because the music was playing in the background. But, yeah, it was really cool to see her sort of dancing around to it. And now she actually sent me a trick-or-treating video of, like, the next day, and they were playing Thriller as you guys were walking by. I don't know if were you with her that day?
No, I had work.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to trick or treat with my nephews, but I couldn't go.
That was so cute. So you saw the video, right? Of the monkey and all that.
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
No, wait, maybe I did. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really cute. Your
Oh,
mom
yeah.
will show you.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember now.
Why?
Yes, that's awesome.
Why
I
it
know.
was just smiling and so brave. You know, most kids will get scared away, but that was just such a cute.
Right.
Just the way he responded. So
Yeah.
for those who don't know, they were going trick or treating. It wasn't quite dark yet. In fact, it looked like it was early evening when the sun was out. But there was a man in an ape suit right in the middle of the yard, and you would think they were kind of looking like, is that real? What's going on? But he ran right up, and he was just smiling and wasn't afraid at all. And I think a lot of that fear comes in later with kids because, maybe they watch stuff they aren't supposed to watch later in life, or, just, pick up from the parents a lot of times about fear and stuff like that. But when they're so young, and they just don't seem to be as scared about stuff like that. Some kids are. It depends on the face and stuff, I guess, too. But he was just intrigued.
Agreed.
He was cute.
Yeah. It was awesome.
So you recently got another
like
job,
that.
didn't you? How are things going with that? Are you happy there?
Really good. Yeah, it's really good. Everyone there is really nice, and I like all my coworkers, so that's good. It's definitely temporary, but so far so great with it. So I'm happy right now. And I just got a new car, so that's good too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it sucks that you're not going to be here
Yep.
for the get together. I guess you got work or whatever, but you're going to try to make it on New Year's though, right?
Yes, I am. I'm off work for New Year's, so I'll be there for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll get to see your mom
Yeah,
on
I'm
November
really excited.
11th, but I won't get to see you until you guys are coming on to Austin for the New Year's thing. So really excited to finally get to meet you guys in person.
I know, we are too. Really, it's so great to have, a community of people who can all just have open minds and hearts. And I know I and my mom both really appreciate and love you guys a lot.
Oh, and the feeling is mutual. We all love each other, and it's just wonderful that we have each other like this, and that's why I felt really impressed that we need to start getting together and making those connections in real life, because for many of us it just seems surreal when we get online, like, why do all these people understand but the people I'm with all day long don't seem to get it, and I seem crazy and fringe,
I'm like a nutcase in my city.
Exactly. So yeah, it's
That's
nice
okay.
to have each other.
That's all right with me.
We've even come up with the name for the
Yes,
normal people, the normies,
Yes.
So it's funny though. I think of it as a joke, not really an us and them thing, but just kind of a funny name because they always call us crazy or weird or whatever. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wanted to tell you about also in my own bathroom where I'm at most of my life, really, I noticed that there was a logo on my sink that just randomly appeared. And I think you saw a picture of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I saw that. That was, what did it say again? It was
it was like it looked like a brand. It was like LANXING.
Right, LAN Crossing. Alien Crossing is what. When your mom was on, we were talking about it. I was like, oh my god, it's like Alien Crossing, and it's spelled like in a I don't know what you call that, anagram or phonetically or
right,
technical term for it, but yeah, that's really weird. And I saw it, and it looked so new, and just like it had just been printed on there too.
I know, and the craziest thing is, I color my hair myself, and I do it frequently. And I had literally colored my hair about a week before I'd noticed this logo that appeared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like all up in the sink. I would have seen this, and it was not there. And one night I had walked in the bathroom, and it was the first thing I saw. And it really freaked me out. And the weirdest thing about it that is so strange to me is I remember seeing that before, like whenever I was little. And I almost remember it being there. And then it like disappeared for a while because it's like a porcelain sink and it's just all white. And then these black letters just appeared under the faucet. And I mean, it really threw me for a curveball.
That's weird
And
when
it
you
was
have
just
those
really,
dual
really-
memories like that. I've gotten that with quite a few Mandela effects where the new way seems familiar. It's just something strange about it. It's just weird.
It's so strange. I remember it from years ago, and it was like it's always been there, but it was gone, and then I forgot about it, and it came back, and I was like, whoa, this never was there, but I've seen this there before, but it hasn't been there. I mean, it was wild. It really baffled me for weeks. I kept staring at it. I need to go see if it's still there.
I know, that's how it is with, I'll go to tell somebody about something. I'm like, a Bible verse or something. I'm like, I better go look this up first, because if it changed back, I'm just going to look like an idiot. You know what I mean? So I'll go look it up and make sure it's, because I've had stuff do that before, It's just weird when things flip-flop on you. Like the whole Flintstones thing flip-flopped on me. And then the Houston, we've had a problem. It was when I first came across the Mandela effect, and people were all talking about it. And then it switched back. And then there's these boards. It's like, 20 most famous misquoted lines of movies, and it's still on that list, but yet it's changed back. So it's like now that list makes no sense. So it's actually quite humorous though when you can get beyond the shock of it. You know, but one of the ones that I always think about. Were you with your mom when she went to that restaurant where the Chewy's restaurant and the name it changed, or?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But I do like did hear of it, and I drive by it all the time, and so I've definitely noticed it and seen it after she told me about it.
Right.
It's really bizarre.
Yeah, what was
like
really
that.
bizarre
It's crazy.
is the waitress. She never did call in. We were hoping that she would call in and tell her side of the story, but your mom had talked to the waitress about the new spelling, and then the waitress said something like, the weird thing is I had a dream that it was spelled the other way. I'm like, what? That's so weird. That's strange.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like the old reality is a dream to her. It's just... Oh.
It is to me too.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you took the time to call in. And,
yes, thank you. And it's my boyfriend's birthday, so we're hanging out and having fun. And
what's
I
his
bought
name
him
again?
a big cookie cake. So Jeremy.
Jeremy, that's right. Well, happy birthday,
Yep.
Jeremy. I won't sing or anything, but I will definitely wish him a happy birthday.
Yes. But we're gonna be listening to your show because that's what we just tuned in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love Taylor, so I'm gonna definitely listen.
All right, well, lots of love to you, and give Jeremy a big hug for everybody.
I will. Lots of love.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye, Shane.
Bye-bye.
Let's go.
You're listening to The Love Stream.
Unbiased and on the fence.
And indeed, it is the love stream. Looks like everybody left again. I was going to go back to the phone lines again. So phone lines are open. Unless you are in here and you do want to speak, you can raise your hand by pressing *2. And I don't know. I think, and I can totally get it. People get nervous. They're like, I'll just call next week. Why do I need to call this week? Somebody's already on here. Talk yourself out of it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Yeah, birthday's all over, so 11/2. It's so funny, I've been seeing these dual synchronicities a lot, so I was noticing the date, and then I noticed that there was I noticed 111 people in here, but then I noticed 112 later, and it mirrored the date, or it matched the date below 11/2, so 112, 112. And I've been getting a lot of those where I'll see the odometer matches the time or something like that. So, I know, people get nervous, but it's really not that bad once you get to talking. That's why I know a lot of people are waiting to get on, and they're like, it's worse when I think you're waiting than when you finally get on. Well, at least it is like that for me. It's more nerve-wracking when I'm just getting started than when I'm actually talking. But let me see. So yeah, I don't know whatever happened, Sherry, to the waitress. Did she just... I guess that's how people are with Mandela effects. Over time, they just sort of... I guess if they're not ready for it, they just sort of push them to the side and just start doubting things. Awakening within. You're funny, Carrie. Yeah, I love you guys too. It's so great to have this group together here. I try to guide the conversation, or keep it rolling anyway. It's hard to do that with myself though. I guess I could ask myself questions, or you guys could ask me questions. Everyone dipped out. Frank the Tank, my brother from another mother. Oh, okay. Let's see what we got here. this could be one of two different people, please raise your hand by pressing *2. If you'd like to talk. There it is. Going back to the phone lines, 405. Who am I talking to?
Susan.
Susan. Okay, I thought it could be you or Carrie, because he's even though he's over in Carrie, even though he's in New Mexico, he still has his 405 number. So I didn't want to take a guess because I knew it could be either one of you. But he's going to be here on November 11th as well, so you'll get to meet him in person.
Oh, I'm starting to get really excited about this. This is so exciting.
Me too.
Yay.
Now, this is sort of where I'm at with this right now, because it's the place I was wanting to go to, which was Peace of Mind bookstore, because they have the aura images. I thought other people might want to get it, and they got couches to hang out on and everything. But down by Guthrie Green, the park where they have a lot of outdoor events, there's a coffee shop called the Gypsy House or something like that. I've never been there, but my daughter says it's a really nice place to hang out and stuff. So near there's a few different little art museums and things like that. So I thought, if it's a nice day, we could go to the Gypsy House and then go across the street and hang out at the park. If it's only like a week away, and I think it's supposed to be in the 60s, but you know how 10-day forecasts are, so we never know. But if it is raining or something, we can hang out at the coffee shop and then go over and hang out maybe at one of the art museums, because they have like couches and stuff. So there's stuff to do, but I want to visit this weekend and see how busy they are, because I don't, I'm thinking that, I just want to talk to the owners and was like, hey, are you busy on Sunday afternoon? And, would it be a problem getting a dozen people in here? That sort of thing, just to make sure we're not all, at different tables scattered about the restaurant or something, But then they have a patio too. So I'm going to check it out this Sunday, and then I'll send out an email.
Okay.
So
that sounds awesome. That. Whatever ends up happening will be great.
That's how I look at it too. I'm like, I know this is supposed to happen. Things have just been falling in place, and it got me to do that. And then a couple of things fell apart, but I know just the overall get together is supposed to happen. I just don't know where yet, but I know it'll happen, and it's cool.
Yeah, I was so excited to find out that Sherry's coming, and sorry that Darby can't. But this is, I need this right now too. I'm in like a fog of change. There's so much change and adjusting that I'm going through. Just kind of one thing after another. Right after my brother passed away, the next week my mom went into the ER, but she's all right. She's good. Mm-hmm. It wasn't anything really, maybe stress, and she doesn't realize that her back is out of line and she gets pain from it yet. It's kind of new for her to start experiencing pain. But anyway, we're doing well now. We're adjusting because I'm living with her now.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in the chat.
Right. So how long of a drive is it for you to come up here to Tulsa?
Hour and a half at the most.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
Not bad at all.
On my long trip all the way from Arizona, once I got to Oklahoma City, man, it just seemed like, finally home. It was like no time at all. So.
Oh, right. And I sure wasn't going to ask you to make any other stops on the way home. I knew you were going to need to get home, and we were going to get together sometime soon. So I didn't press for, hey, drop by. We'll meet up at the Taco Bell or something.
I actually did stop in, I stopped in Albuquerque and met with Joyce, and we stopped at a coffee house, and I've been working on her. She's like an energy healer. She uses like tuning forks and stuff like that. So I'm going to have her on, and we'll talk about all that. But yeah, I'd already made the stop there because I promised her I would, and it was like I wanted to stop a few different places and say hi to people, but gosh, with a 15-hour plus drive, it was just so long of a drive.
Right. Yes, I do. And traveling is exhausting, but boy, you had some pretty scenery.
Yeah, it was. It was really pretty. And it was so funny because on the way there, I took a lot of footage, and I lost all of the footage I took on the way there. But it wasn't a big deal. But it was still like, oh man, all that time I took driving and filming and doing all that was just a big waste. But but I had the 15 plus hours on the way home. So
Oh gosh, yeah, I could have relaxed a little more on the drive out. But
Yeah.
well, also, I want to tell you this, that my cousin Lonnie, and I'm hoping that he'll join us. He gets off work about 2 o'clock, and he's up by Keystone. But maybe we can talk about another plan for another time to meet at his place too, because that's property. People could camp out. We could do the drum circles in the fire pit. I'll send you photos of his place. So it's probably about 30 to 40 minutes from, well, more like 40, because kind of have to go up Peru Road. Do you ever go up into the Keystone Lake area?
I did when I lived here the last time, but that's been 20 plus years. So, yeah, I used to have I guess it was like an uncle-in-law type person was a volunteer fireman up in that area. So we would go over to his property and usually have like 4th of July there, and it's really beautiful area though. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. They've just got a couple of RVs stationed right there and some outbuildings, but he's got like a little pond, a goldfish pond that's really nice. Like I said, I'll send some photos and we can talk about that at this get together. Unless you wanted to try, I mean, it'd be so knee jerk to try to plan that. It's too close to our time. So, but
yeah, but maybe in the spring when it starts getting warmer, that'd be cool.
Better weather.
Yeah.
Well, because we're just gonna want to keep doing this. We're just gonna, like you guys talked about after Sedona. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Just everyone saying that this is so empowering for us to have that, time together. I'm just, really excited about it, and hope that, like you were saying, more people can be co-opted to find each other in their close areas and start coming together. It's just so fun, exciting.
It is an exciting time. And plus, if it's a little bit longer of an event, then people can travel a little bit further away. Right now, since we're only getting together for a few hours, it's not really worth traveling 2 or 3 states to, come hang out for a couple hours. But if it's a 2-day event or something, then I can see it being worth it, a plane ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's now Sherry's coming from Louisiana, because I asked, where do you guys live? And how long of a drive is it for her? Or Illinois? Is it Louisiana? It's Louisiana. That's what she said.
Yeah, I think it's Louisiana. And Carrie, he's actually traveling across the country, but he's going to time it to where he comes through town at that time. So he's coming from a long way away as well, but just sort of passing through.
But he's just passing through.
Yeah, and then meeting up. So he's going to time the trip. And I have no doubt he can time it just right. We met up within 20 minutes of each other when we went out to Sedona, so I'm sure it'll work out.
Well, if Sherry needs an overnight, we can talk about that. I mean, I'll try to, see about that, because I don't know how many hours they're driving, and it might be a lot for her to travel that far and have to go back the same day.
Yeah, I know she was excited about Quiznos, because she doesn't have them where she lives anymore, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you guys got Quiznos? I got to stop by there." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that would be cool."
Yeah, I've lived in different states, and the stores are definitely different. Like Piggly Wiggly is in South Carolina. That was fun to see.
Yep, and for me, it was always, I grew up in St. Louis, so it was like, White Castles was one of the places we go to. And for anybody who went to, I think in Atlanta, it was Crystals, and they look like the same burgers, but they do not taste the same. I was like, what the heck is this? And I've had people come to St. Louis, and they're like, what the heck is this? And we have Emo's Pizza there, and it's like a pizza that's on a cracker type of a crust, and people that come there and they're like, what the heck is this? Isn't a pizza, it's not New York style, it's not Domino's or Papa John's, it's a pizza all its own. But that's sort of their thing in St. Louis. They say
staple.
Yeah, they can tell if are you really from St. Louis? And that's like one of their commercials, and like, yeah, I'm from St. Louis. We'll try this pizza. And it's like, oh, this is disgusting. The crust is like cardboard. And they'd say this in their commercial because it's hilarious, because people that are from there love it. They grew up on it, but people from elsewhere are like, oh, this is gross. It's funny though.
That's funny. I like the thin crust pizza myself. I would probably like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's making me miss it now just thinking about it, because I grew up on it. But I always love White Castles. I'll get the frozen ones, and they're starting to taste like they used to taste when I was there. But I know when I go and actually have White Castles in St. Louis that it's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing this whole time, you know. And I think the burgers are made out of cabbage too, so even though they don't seem like it.
They're made out of what?
Cabbage. I remember hearing that, and I was like, "What? They're cabbage burgers? That's ridiculous! It totally seems like a meat burger, you know." But no, somebody said it's cabbage. I don't know if that's
like
true.
cabbage.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like cabbage though. It seems like a little beef slider or whatever. But yeah.
That's funny we're talking about food, because a lot of times food comes up on the chat. I think it's funny. Is anyone getting hungry?
Yeah. But yeah, I thought they were all over the place because of growing up listening like the Beastie Boys, and they would make raps about it and stuff. And I was a kid and hearing them talk about going to White Castles, and I thought they were all over the place. But I guess they're from like Brooklyn or somewhere up east, and they have White Castles up there too. So it's interesting though.
Yep, I've not heard of them. I didn't know about them, but I'm going to try one of their frozen pizzas now.
Yeah.
But I have nothing. I'm like not in a real talky mood. I'm kind of in a slump right now, so I'm not going to tie up your line, but I'm just really excited about everything coming up, and I appreciate what T. Taylor was saying about the energies, because, man, yeah, we're feeling it. I got so triggered by my daughter the other day, and I still need to take care of that. Bless her heart.
Yeah.
But
a lot of times it's harder when it's people
growing.
close to you, you know what I mean? Because you don't have that sort of, I don't know, the people close to you know how to trigger you, first off. And then just not having that sort of boundary up of it being someone that you don't know very well or whatever. It's, I don't know. It's, yeah, those are the people that seem to trigger us the most, it seems like.
But, you know, I guess the opportunity for me to be in my mother's house and the changes that my daughter is going through, so the real extreme changes for her right now. And so she's kind of handling me different, and I'm having some really not so great reactions to it, but I also, you know, I could have reeled myself in a little better. But the feeling about it is, as we're talking about it, is that if we can master, you know, our family relationships, the close ones, how much better are we going to be at it, period. I mean, that's just going to sharpen our skills, because, gosh, we're, you know, the connection in family is how powerful when we heal together.
Yeah, definitely. I just noticed that I typed your name in but didn't put it up on the screen. This is Susan, everybody, so. And I think you're actually,
Hello.
I think you're from close by where, you're not actually from Oklahoma City, you're from, what's the town again, or city?
I was in Jones.
Jones,
yeah. Straight, like, if you know where Frontier City is?
No.
People in the, okay, I-35 and I-40. Well, do you know where Edmond is?
See, I've heard of all those places, but I haven't been there to really know exactly where.
Okay, well, we're just east. We're about 10 miles. Jones is about 10 miles east of Oklahoma City. So it's, you know, closer to Tulsa if I come from Jones, which I probably will. But I'm not sure. I think my mom's going to go stay with my aunt and uncle, so we're going to kind of caravan when I come.
You mean Sunday, the 11th?
Yes. Me and my mother's going to go stay with my uncle and aunt in Tulsa, right off the Tisdale Highway. They have kind of an underground home out there.
Oh, nice.
Really cool. And it's kind of just off to the side of Tulsa. It's off north a little bit. And she's going to stay there. And then Terry and I, and hopefully Shira and hopefully Ronnie are all going to carpool together.
That'd be cool.
For the Sunday event. Yeah, that's 4 people that might be coming in our load.
Oh, nice.
Because you were saying about, yeah, so I don't know if you're doing a head count. It sounded like you might be.
Well, it's just that it was just working out to be about 12 people, but some of the people said they weren't going to be able to make it that week because they were already traveling and stuff like that. So it'll be whoever's supposed to be there will be there. So I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
All those
right.
things that are out of my
Well,
hand, I'm so glad that my higher self is taking care of it. But, you know.
Right on. Yeah, right on. Well, like I said, Sherry, you hit me up in the chat if you want to do an overnight, and we'll work something out. Just saying.
All right.
Anyway.
I appreciate it, Susan.
And I'm
Thank
not
you so
gonna
much.
keep you.
All righty.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, lots
Bye.
of love. I'll see you on the 11th.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Can't wait. Bye-bye.
Let's go.
You're listening to The Love Stream.
Unbiased and on the fence.
All right, going back to the phone lines, we have an 831 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hi, Shane. This is Kara.
Hey, Kara, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I've been listening to you since March, and I've been thinking, I need to call Shane and tell him that I really like listening to everybody telling their stories and all that good stuff. So
That's awesome. Do you spell your name Kara or
no,
C?
C
C-A-R-A?
C-A-R-A. Yeah. Yeah, I'm out here in California.
Very
in the
nice.
salad bowl of the world in the Salinas Valley.
What part are you, northern or southern?
Actually, central.
Oh, central. Okay.
It's on the coast. It's right. You know where Monterey is?
I've heard of it. I haven't
Monterey.
been to California. The furthest I've been is Arizona.
Oh, yeah. No, we're right in the middle. If you look at a map, that little you see San Francisco. All the inland waterways and stuff, and then if you go right below San Francisco, you'll see like a little curved shape. That's called the Monterey Bay, and then the Salinas Valley goes right up to the end of that. So.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cool.
Very
You
nice.
get lots of fresh fruit.
Yeah,
Lots
so
of fresh veggies.
you've got the nice weather there then, right?
Oh yeah. It's our little secret here, because we don't get snow. I mean, it's like rare that we get snow, and we get our nice little Indian summer, like right at this time, September and October, and it's not, it gets a little bit cold, but not too bad.
Do you ever see snow?
So, oh yeah. Yeah, just not. I mean, we have to go up to the mountains around the area to see it if it does get cold enough to snow. But yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my mom would always talk
So,
about. I think Santa Monica was. She said it was like between mountains and the ocean, or but she would talk about how beautiful it was there. So I've always wanted to go there.
Santa
But
Monica is really. You should make it out to the edge of the landmass here. It's very pretty here.
yeah, we'll say for 2019, I'll try to get out to California for sure.
For sure, and if you get a chance, come to Monterey, because there's a lot of things that happen in Monterey. They have a lot of big functions, worldwide stuff that comes here. Like the car shows and stuff like that, high-end car shows, and the Concours d'Elegance, and it's all kinds of neat stuff here. But
That's awesome.
anyway, I wanted to tell you, has anyone been having any deja vus lately, like the last 2 weeks?
I've had those before, some really strange types of deja vu, but not in the last couple of weeks. But, I've noticed that people sort of get symptoms on their own timeline. So what are yours like? Are they just straightforward deja vus, or because some...
Yeah. Just,
okay.
You're sitting there and you're like looking down, like I was like wiping the counter at the pumpkin patch, because I was working at the pumpkin patch here. And for some reason I was like, oh my God, I'm having a deja vu. And I looked over at one of the family members of this farm, And I was like, I'm having a deja vu. And he's like, oh, cool, cool. And then, like, the next day I had another deja vu, and I was like, oh, my God. And then, you know, it was like gave it a break, you know, and then, like, this week it was like I had two more, and I was like, oh, Jesus, criminy. And definitely feeling the energies, you know, coming home, and it's like, oh, my God, I can't even keep my eyes open. So it's like you just kind of have to, like, go lay down. Can't do anything. It's like, all right, stop what you're doing, go lay down, you know, take a 15 or 20-minute break, and then go back, you know.
Do you
get
feel
back
like
into
it's
what you're doing?
Do you feel like it's tied to lack of sleep or anything like that, or do you feel like it's something more going on with energies and stuff?
No, it feels more like the energies because I get pretty good sleep. I mean, I usually get at least 7 to 8 hours a night, so it's not, you know, I don't think it's that.
Right. Yeah. Are you an experiencer of the Mandela effect by any chance?
You know what? I can't recall, you know, when I was listening to you a few months back, you know, and I was like, you know what? I really don't think that I can recall having any things, you know, so I've been, like, looking around at stuff, seeing if it's, like, triggering anything, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Right.
So, but it was fun, you know, it's fun listening to you guys, because then I was just like, oh, yeah, I remember it was that way, but, you know, there was nothing that really triggered me. It was just like I'm just going back and, like, doing a little bit of research and saying, okay, I remember it this way, and now it's that way, and, you know, just it's like, okay, here we go. We're along for the ride.
Right, kind of on the fence about it. I was like that for about a year until that statue had changed, and I was like, no, I know this was the other way. There's no doubt. I would bet my life on it. Like, just, you know, I was 100% certain it was one way, and then it was a different way, and then I couldn't find proof it existed the way I remembered it. But yeah, I was like with Looney Tunes and Fruit Loops. I remember seeing all of those at first, but it just wasn't. I just couldn't get over that hump of disbelief that things could change in that way. So even though, I mean, now that I've had the other things change, it's not a stretch for me to, you know, view those two things, the Looney Tunes and the Fruit Loops, as being genuine Mandela effects for me. But at first they just weren't good enough to override my bad memory, because, you know, I'm the most non-observant and forgetful person there is. So it just, you know, I just was like, no, my memory's just bad. But with the statue, it wasn't like a remembering as much as it was a knowing. You know, it was like, just like if my eyes had changed colors, and everyone was like, no, they've always been green. I'm like, no, my eyes have always been brown. It just isn't a memory thing at some point for some items, you know. So it was just a real big trip for me. And I couldn't understand why people would get so upset about it or get so excited about it. Like, why are they freaking out about this? You know, of course it's just their memory. So I have a lot of patience for people that are like, no, it's just bad memory, and they deny it, because it took me a year to see it too. So I think it'd be that way though.
I had to go back to the Bible. The lion and the lamb thing was, you know, that for me, I was just like, okay, I just need to go and look at my Bible here. And sure enough, I was like, dang, I remember it the other way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was the one that really got me to look back into it after I'd sort of wrote it off, was Joseph Reyna on Leak Project talking about it. I'm like, he must have said it backwards. Let me go look it up. And I looked it up, and it was the wolf and the lamb. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was definitely the lion and the lamb. I remember coming across that, you know, reading through the Bible so many times, and there's so many references to it, you know, being the other way. It's just a trip. It really is. But I ask that because I often think of the movie The Matrix, when the deja vu happened, and how they say, oh, somebody changed something in the Matrix, you know, and that's why you saw deja vu. And then they tried to climb out a window, but it was all bricked up. Did you see the movie?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Times. I've watched all of them. Yeah.
So I always relate that.
And
I wonder if it's related with changes happening.
I know, because when I have a deja vu, I always say, oh my God, I'm having a deja vu. I never not say it.
Right.
And then I think about the Matrix movie, and I was like, God, I wonder really what the heck is going on here.
Yeah.
You know, really what is really changing, you know? Is it really someone up in behind the scenes in their little computer room? Like, oh my God, we got a virus here. We got a glitch. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You know?
I love deja vus, though. I just got some strange ones. That's why I asked if they were normal deja vus, because I'd had some where it was like a mixture of deja vu with nostalgia. So it would feel like deja vu, but then it would feel like I not only had it happened before, but it carried a familiarity that was like nostalgic, like it happened a really long time ago, sort of a feeling accompanied with the feeling of, hey, this happened before, you know what I mean? That's why I asked if it was normal, because I've had those too, which are really powerful, you know?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
And I even been having dreams too. My friends have a pumpkin farm, and they asked me to help them out a little bit. So the first day I went there, and this was like late September, and I only went like 2 times there. And then the third, that night, I had a dream that a pipe broke in the ground, and it would have flooded a lot of the fields. And then like 2 days later, they had a pipe break in the ground, and it had flooded parts of the fields. And I was like, oh my God, now am I having like premonition stuff happening now?
Right.
Yeah. It was really strange.
Yeah, that's freaky, because, you know, just as I was going on the air today, and I was wondering if I was going to have connection problems, it made me remember I had some kind of dream, since I had connection problems the other day, about having connection problems again. And I was like, wait, did that really happen? I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a dream that I forgot about everything going down like at different times and stuff, just like it happened in real life. But of course, you know, that was after it really happened. So maybe I was just processing the fact that it happened, or maybe we have more to come, more outages on the way. Who knows? I guess only time will tell.
Yeah.
I think we forget a lot though while we sleep.
True. Although I did remember this one dream that I had. I like to astral travel when I dream, and I was walking through this door, and this guy was clapping his hands, like, you know, to say, congratulations, you made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped through the door, and I'm looking at him like, why is this guy clapping his hands? And then I stepped into like a control room on a spaceship, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm looking out these huge, massive, you know, windows were like 90 degree, you know, all the way around. And I was like out in space, and I'm like, oh my God, those are the stars. I was like, okay, yay, I made it finally to the spaceship, you know.
Wow,
So
yeah, those are cool.
It's cool. Yeah.
So do you feel like you're like a starseed, or, you know, from another place brought here, or do you deal with like not feeling like this is home to you a lot?
Most definitely. I kind of get the feeling that Venus is my my home place. But I'm not sure.
Right.
Not sure. But it's kind of like sitting in the back corner of my mind right now, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, most definitely no. You know, we came down here to help for sure. You know, because I know myself and my brothers. You know, we're like the good people. You know, that definitely make the effort every day to go out and help people, and, you know, don't judge and all that stuff. And you know, it's just a knowing. It's like I always tell people, I know I'm one of the good people. You know,
right.
I just come in, you know, I don't lie, I don't do crazy, stupid things, you know, and I just try and help, you know, that's what I do. And, you know, and also if I get an opportunity to try and help someone understand, you know, what's going on, you know, I try and give my little, you know, 5-10% little,
right,
you know, input and see if they can understand it and, you know, go forward with that.
Were you raised in any kind of religions or anything?
You know what? Actually, I did go to it's called First Christian Church here in Salinas, but it was only for about 5 or 6 years, and we just got to the point where it was like, Mom, we're not really getting anything out of this, and so we asked if we, could stop going.
Yeah.
So she was like, okay. So I wasn't, I just kind of get the gist of it,
Yeah.
of what was going on, and I'm kind of glad I didn't really get indoctrinated into it per se. Just I kind of wanted to formulate my own way of figuring everything out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
and not
often
be told.
sort of regretted being raised the way I was, but now I understand it. It was so important just to be able to relate with other people now that I've left it, because it's like you kind of go through this, like you were just talking about. You handle yourself in a manner that you feel is upright and everything, and for so long, it feels like you're doing that because you feel like God's watching you and God's putting things on the scale and you're being weighed and all of that. But it was so funny because once I got out of the church and I started really taking responsibility for myself instead of sort of pushing everything over to Jesus to take it away if I mess up, and just sort of owned up to my own mistakes, I handle myself so much better now than when I was a Christian and I felt like, oh, well, if I screw up, it's okay. I'll just, Jesus will take care of that for me. And I think Jesus is important. I'm not saying that, but I think everything sort of revolves around, in religion anyway, revolves around his death. And I think now that his life is really the main part of the story, his teachings and things, the way we should conduct ourselves, and all of that's sort of lost in religion now as they focus on his death as being the primary part of why he came. You know what I mean? So. It's been a ride, I guess, but yeah, I never thought I would feel that way. Like, I don't feel like I do now. I kind of went through a stage where I felt like I was being watched and then I wasn't being watched. But now I feel like there are higher ups watching, but not in a sort of a condemning sort of way. I just feel like I'm being looked after, so.
Yeah. No, my mom raised myself and my 2 older brothers to be, self-sufficient and be, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and, love your neighbor, and, the basics.
Yeah.
And we just, we never really swayed from that. We were always good kids, growing up, and we're good adults now, so.
Yeah.
I
So your
guess
brothers are
kudos to
awake
my
too?
mom. Actually, my middle brother, he's 4 years older than me. He has been awake since the early 80s, and I don't even think he's ever been incarnated as a human before, because he kind of had a tough time assimilating to being a human here. But my older brother, he kind of went the mainstream, did everything that you were supposed to do, get a good job, get married, have kids, get a home, all that stuff. And he's really smart, and he has a lot of good ideas, but he's just not implementing them. And he's actually retired now, and he has a lot of time to do all this stuff. And I've been encouraging him and talking with him, and trying to just plant little seeds in him, and he's getting it, and he understands it, and he likes sci-fi. He reads a lot of sci-fi stuff, so he knows what's going on, but he's not really relating his life to our future life, I guess, what we're possibly going to go into or morph into or create, or what we're creating.
Right.
So I'm trying to get him on board with that, and realize that, your thoughts are creating what's happening in your world.
Yeah.
So he's understanding that.
So I was just going to ask if any of you have done the quantum healing hypnosis or the BQH at all.
No. You know what? My brother, my middle brother, he lives in Hawaii, and he was just here. Him and his wife were just here last week, and I so wanted to do the Akashic reading with Debbie Solaris.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring her up earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, oh my God, that would have been so cool to have both my brothers there and do like a triple reading, you know. But by the time that I thought about it, I was like, oh gosh, my brother's going to leave in 2 days, and there's not enough time to get anything set up. So.
Right. Yeah, I thought it'd be cool to do a BQH session. Like if one of you guys learned how to do it, or two of you did, then you could, do each other's sessions or whatever.
Yes.
That would be really cool.
Yes, I have been looking into actually learning how to do it. I was following some of your little, what do you have, your comments down below, and how to connect to who's teaching it and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, there's actually a discount you can get, and it's really not much more than getting a session. That's why I'm like, man, if you get a couple of people to go in on it, and family, because many of us don't really have family to do that with. You know what I mean? To just both learn the course together, like the guest I had on the Kindred Spirit Sisters that both did it, and then they can do their.
Yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, they can do each of their own sessions or whatever. I thought, man, that is so cool, because a lot of times you want to go back in for another one, but it's just so expensive. But if it's just a little bit more to learn how to do it, I don't know, because when I first looked into QHHT, it was like $1,000, and it was like, oh my God, $1,000! Wow, that's just so much money. But with the discount, it's like $300, and I was like, that's so much more doable, because that's like a lot of times they'll charge you $300 for a session, a QHHT session.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, you can just learn it for the amount, but you need somebody else if you want to do it yourself. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But yeah, I am looking into it, because I've been having some thoughts too that I need to learn how to do this, because that's something that could be a potential avenue for me to help people going forward, and also to help myself.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so many people are doing so many things that it could just be like another tool in the toolbox. It's not my main thing I want to do, but I'm so glad I took the course and learned what I did about it, because it's something that I can incorporate just at least with my family for now. And I was actually hoping in the future to maybe give one away, because I know a lot of people just don't have money for it. So once I just haven't had the time, but I'd love to be able to just give it away to people that can't afford it and just can't, just have a session with them and help put them on the right track or whatever, and it's really, you're just guiding them to their higher self. So it's really not like you're doing anything really, So.
Yeah, that's all the stuff that I've been looking at, including Allison Coe stuff. It's like, oh my God, that would be such helpful information for someone to know, because a lot of people are just struggling, not even getting to the first step to know what they're supposed to be doing here.
Yeah.
Let alone just having to deal with the everyday things, paying your bills and keeping a roof over your head and food on the table,
Yeah. And I think like your older brother, a lot of people are, just sort of in the grind of regular 3D life, and there is a higher purpose for them to be here that's sort of just under the surface, just waiting. Like it was for me, I was totally caught up in the day-to-day grind, just working and keeping my nose to the grinding stone, as they say, and just supporting for my family. And I never thought I could be doing something like this. It was just this idea that popped in my head. And I mean, I look a year and a half later, how far I've come and the people I've met, and I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing finally, and it's like it's just a beautiful thing. And it was just a little idea away. So I know like a session like that can just plant that little bit of a seed for someone, and help move them forward.
Yeah, most definitely. I know when I first listened to you, I think it was probably back in March, maybe somewhere around there, March, April, when you had Allison Coe on, because my friend was telling me, you got to listen to Allison Coe, so I was looking on the internet on YouTube, and I was like, okay, and so I started listening to you guys, and you guys are having so much fun. I was like, oh my God, Shane is so cool. You know, just it was funny just watching, listening to you guys laugh and all that stuff, and I'm like, okay. So, now I'm just a regular listening to you every week, so.
That's awesome. And like I said, I'm honored to be doing this and bringing people together. And I see people meeting from coast to coast, and I'm like, wow, that's just so amazing that, two viewers decide to get together just because they watch the same YouTube channel. And I know it sounds crazy to other people out there, but, when you feel that the love of the group and this sort of family feeling that you get in here, and you can see why they met and why they had a good time and why we should all try to start getting together and meeting. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, most definitely.
That is awesome.
Okay, Shane, well, I shall let you get some more callers in, but I just wanted to hop in with my few little comments here.
Well, I appreciate you touching base, and keep listening. And don't be a stranger. Call back whenever you want.
Okay, cool.
All right, lots of love to you.
Take care, Shane.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Let's go.
You're listening to The Love Stream.
Unbiased and on the fence.
Fun times. Here we are about 2 hours into this, and gosh, it's shout out to the lurkers, because I know a lot of people just listen, and I lurk a lot when I'm on other channels because I don't want to be the attention in the chat room and stuff. It's like, oh, look, Shane's here. And so a lot of times I'll just kind of lie back in the cut and just watch, and a lot of times I'm doing other things like art or working on the car or something to where I can't really join in with the chat, and I'll just have my headphones in listening. So lots of love to everybody in the chat and everybody that's just lurking. You're loved. I know you feel the love, but you're not forgotten about. Oh yeah, I wanted to touch on Go-Kart Bob. He was talking about the Bible change that got him was the wineskins. And that was huge for me too, because I specifically remember having a King James Bible and sitting in a sermon. I had my own church I went to, so I didn't go with my mom and my dad. Each went to their own church, and then my cousin had taken me to this other church, and I loved it. It was only like, I don't know, a couple of dozen people in it. It was really small, and I just loved the really small group. It was way smaller than either one of my parents' church, which, had hundreds of people in them. So I really liked it. I liked that I knew everybody, and the pastor's kids were cool, and the pastor started letting me play the drums there after a while, and I'm only like 12 or 13, but he let me stick around while I was waiting on my dad to pick me up, and he would, and his son would play the drums, and he would, his son was wanting to move to the bass. So after church, we'd get up there, and he would show me how to play the drums while his son was learning to play the bass. And of course the pastor was on the piano, and we would just practice for, and then it got to where my dad, I would tell him, well, can you just pick me up an hour later? So we'd get like an hour to jam and, play old Christian songs, gospel tunes and stuff. And I got to learn, and it got to where I started playing during the service and everything. And then that worked into me playing for Mike Murdoch whenever, the evangelist, whenever he would come to Tulsa later in life and stuff. So that was such a huge impact. But getting back to what I was saying is, I had my King James Version Bible. My cousin had given it to me. I know it was King James Version. It was my first Bible of my own. And I sat through a whole sermon about wineskins. I remember highlighting it and looking it up and, paying attention, because I was like, what the heck is a wineskin? And I know it was the King James Version of the Bible because it was my first one. So there's just no doubt in my mind that I sat through a full sermon about wineskins And I didn't know what a wineskin was, and he explained it. And then he had a whole sermon around, why you don't put new wine in old wineskins. So that was a 100% thing for me. There's like that whole big memory of that day and sitting through a sermon about wineskins. There's just no doubt in my mind that it used to say wineskins. It's just, unless that was a completely different life in a different universe or something, but it's written in my history of my life. So that was a huge one for me too, Go-Kart Bob. I didn't know that, I didn't realize that right away until I got to looking into the Bible changes. So I'm with you on that one, Bob. That was a huge one. And to where I got into reading the NIV later in life, in my later teens and stuff like that. I know it wasn't the case that I was just mixing something up. I don't think it's wineskins in that anyway, but, oh, that's a good thing, Bob, that you only really read the KJV, because a lot of, I had gotten the NIV Bible on audio. So with a lot of things I'm not sure about, because I'll look in the NIV and it's that way, and I was like, I don't know. I might just remember it from those audio books, because I was a painter and I listened to it so much during the daytime. The whole Bible through and through, and then I love the book of Daniel and Revelations and the Gospels, of course. So a lot of them I listened to several dozens of times, but just because I enjoyed them more. But like Numbers and Exodus and, well, Genesis I read a little bit more. There's a lot of stories in Genesis, so I typically enjoy Genesis. But like Numbers kind of got, I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of, I don't know, it was just more boring for me, to be honest, compared to like Daniel. Like I love Daniel. In fact, I'm wanting to do a thing on Daniel real soon, because just because of the prophecy he had with Nebuchadnezzar and the dream he had where he was going to, he wanted all the magicians to tell him the dream, not only to interpret the dream, but to tell him the dream. And, they were all like, how can we interpret a dream if you don't tell us what it is? And he goes, no, you must tell me what the dream is, so I know that you're not just making up the interpretation of it. And so, yeah, it was, and then, of course, Daniel comes along. Totally love Daniel. It's just one of those books that never get old for me. And then there's even a lost book of Daniel, a chapter that I came across later on. I was so excited. That's why I went into the other stuff in the Bible that I always talk about, like the Nag Hammadi text. If you look up the Nag Hammadi text, you'll find that there's all of these other gospels from other people that you can read, and that's really what sort of began to expand my thinking beyond the Bible, because when you get into reading a lot of that stuff, and then you start reading things that are part of what you read in the Bible, but yet it never made it into the Bible, you start realizing that, this stuff has been edited. I mean, it's really clear that, in the Bible where it says, in him, speaking of God, in him we live and breathe and have our being. That's how the parable of the fishes ends if you're reading in the Nag Hammadi text. That's like the very last part of the parable of the fishes in the Nag Hammadi text. Now, of course, a lot of times you'll get writers in the Bible that would quote different parts of ancient writings, but still that's sort of the same thing. Like when you have Jude, the book right before Revelations, Jude, brother of Jesus, referring to the book of Enoch and quoting from the book of Enoch. And then you're like, well, if it's good enough for Jude, the brother of Jesus, to quote from this book, why is it not in the Bible? And then once you read the book of Enoch and you're like, wait a minute, Jesus said this. And you realize there's times when Jesus quoted things from the book of Enoch, yet the book of Enoch was kept out of the Bible. And it just, you're like, look, if it's good enough for Jesus, if it's good enough for Jesus' brother to quote from, I'd say that it's good enough to read and to consider it as scripture, valid enough to put in the Bible. But it's just pretty far out there stuff when you get to reading about it. But, we're kind of a far out group. So you start realizing how much it applies to what we're looking at nowadays. And There's just the bigger part of the picture that was kept from us. And I think the fact that, Jesus and Jesus' brother quoted from just the book of Enoch alone, and that's not in our Bible, says, hey, I need to look at some of these other scriptures that were considered holy scriptures at the time, and not really what the Council of Nicaea combined for us, hundreds of years after Jesus' life, and they were like, here are the books we want you to read, and there's dozens of Gospels, yet we have 4 of them, and really only John's the most Gnostic of the 4, and you could definitely see how they had their own agendas and ways they were sort of trying to guide people to believe. And so yeah, I was really excited to come across those writings and to compare some of the stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls with what we have in our Bibles, and really interesting stuff. Yes, that's the spelling of it. Thank you, Ronnie. Ronnie in Florida. And you can read that stuff online, so anybody interested in that, go check it out, because there's a couple of parables I often think about, and I even made videos on 2 of them. I'll talk about them unless I get a phone call. The one that I was talking about, the parable of the fishes, it's basically the disciples came to Jesus and they asked, well, can you tell us what God is? And Jesus said, well, let me tell you this parable of the fishes. So the fish were all swimming around, and they were asking, what is water? And asking, each of the fish. And one said, well, there's this big wise fish that we can go ask. So they traveled to the big sea, and they asked this big wise fish, we hear that we live and breathe and have our being in water, yet we've never seen water. What is water? And Jesus says that in the same way they ask him what water is, you're asking me what God is. It's in God that you live, breathe, and have your being. Now that really makes you take on a completely different view of what God is, that we're made up of, God, like the fish are made up of water, and they swim in water. They're always in water, so they don't know what it's like not to be in water. And I think that's a good archetype for a good parable for what we live in, because God is everywhere. How is God everywhere? We've never seen God, and it's in God that we live, breathe, and have our being. So here we are. Let me see. The other one was they asked Jesus, what is truth? And Jesus explained it like mountain peaks and valleys, and how, you see this peak of the mountain as you climb it, and you feel like that's the ultimate truth. And once you get to the peak, you see there's another peak that you can achieve. And so truth is that way. You come to the peak only to find there's another peak of higher understanding which you can achieve. And he says those in the valley do not see as those on the mountain peaks. And of course, the mountain peaks are something that you can keep achieving. It's not like you ever reach that final peak. So you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing. And that's why I always go back to it's really the momentum. And that's really why the biggest problem I have with the church is that they sort of take that momentum, they take the wind out of your sails, so to speak, and you sort of come to this understanding when you learn doctrine that this is how it is, this is pretty much how it works, and this is what the Bible says about that, and they never really look into a deeper understanding of what's going on. So a lot of the people in the church are great people, but they've sort of become stagnant in their spiritual life. Not everybody, but for the most part, a lot of people just go on Sunday, they just pull their Bible out to take it to church, and they kind of feel like, they figured it out, so to speak, and then you lose that forward momentum of constantly growing and learning. And that's really the danger I see in organized religion, is that you can sort of feel like you figured it out, and okay, well, or put your trust in someone else, in a man, and you're like, well, this guy has it figured out. If I really need something answered, I'll just go ask him, and it sort of puts something between the connection we should all have with the divine ourselves. I mean, if you look at Jesus, he said, when you pray, pray like this: Our Father who art in heaven. He said we should go to the divine ourselves. And for the most part, when you look at the Pope, one of his names is the Vicar of Christ, the representative of Christ. And I don't know about you guys, but if I invited you to my house and I'm like, hey, come meet me at 4 o'clock, and I have somebody show up at the door and says, hey, I'm Shane's representative, you can meet with me, that's anti-me, right? So that's why a lot of times I view anybody that tries to stand between you and the true Christ consciousness, the true divine, is anti-Christ. And that can really show up in all sorts of ways. But, and I don't want to be that for anybody. I just want to lead people to have that connection themselves, that no one has to come through me. And I think that's sort of the problem with the church is that, they tell you, come to us, we'll connect you with God. Or we'll be your connection to God. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my silent rant, I guess. But, yeah, there's a lot of great people in the church, great, loving, wonderful people. And, even preachers and stuff, I know a lot of them, they're not purposely trying to be deceiving or anything like that. I think they're just as deceived as anyone else. And I think a lot of people are just deceived about how it all works, because we sort of just trust what's been handed down to us instead of, figuring it out for ourselves. But like Daniel said, I'll get back to the book of Daniel, that people will run to and fro and knowledge will increase. And I feel like we're in that time, that knowledge is increasing. We have the internet. We can look things up. Of course, with any tool like the internet, of course, there's a lot of bad things going on the internet, but look at how we're using it. We're using it to connect to other people with love. We can all look things up. We can find resources like the Nag Hammadi text to have a deeper look into the biblical texts and the extra biblical text and the other ancient writings, and then even other religions. And then you can kind of see this common thread that runs throughout all of the different religions. And then as you open your mind up to being more open-minded to other people, you see that there's wonderful, loving people in every type of group and culture that you come across. And then you can sort of see how the powers that be always want you in that sort of us versus them mentality, whether it's through politics or just your geographic location, the color of your skin, the religion. All of these things seem to be put in place just to... oh, you can't call in, Bob? Phone lines are open. You just call the number on the screen and then... just follow the instructions. If it asks for a PIN, just skip that. That's for me to get in if I call in. But it will ask for show ID, and then you enter the 1477973. But yeah, call in. We still have some time. Or you can join from the internet. If you're on the internet, you can go to that web address down below. If you're like on a computer, it's talkshoe.com/show/love stream. And I don't know if you need the show ID if you do that, the show ID number. But if you do, it's on the screen. It's the same no matter what number you call in on or whatever. But yeah, I see it as being thanks, Susan. Yeah, I see them just trying to separate us, Yeah, you can use your phone, Bob. Just call in on that number. You're in the U.S., right? I'm trying to think of your videos. Were you in Canada? If you're in Canada, there's a Canadian number down in the description box. But the show ID is the same. The show ID number is the same no matter what number you use. But yeah, it'd be wonderful to talk to you. Yeah, have somebody to talk back and forth about religion, because I know you've been in, you've been around, you understand about this whole thing. And I know Jesus is like your hero too. We've got a lot in common. And, a lot of people don't understand the whole, how Jesus can be my hero, yet I'm not in any kind of religion. So it's like, I don't know, I have a deeper understanding of Jesus that doesn't have to be tied to religion. And I felt the power of the divine in my life, and when I was in the church and when I left the church. So I know that has nothing to do with it. And once you sort of get to this point where you see the church is just the man-made structure, you know. Sort of like we're getting together, here's a little group and we're having a discussion. It's just they started adding in, you know, the dogma or the doctrine and, you know, the rules. And then with that comes the judgment when you're not following the rules. And you can really see how things can start with an innocent little group of people like us joining together, and it's sort of evolving into something that resembles more of a cult over time, as we try to get leaders and try to get, you know, rules and boundaries are set. People break them, so then, you know, they're judged for it. And that's why I've had to sort of dip out of some groups I became a part of in the past. And I kind of quietly watch, just because they just got a little bit too much like organized religion. You know, I think the people are great, but I'm a free spirit. So let me see. I don't see anybody calling in, though. Ah, here we go. 541 calling in. You're live. Who am I talking to?
Shane, it's Go-Kart Bob.
What's up, Bob? How's it going, buddy?
Oh, I couldn't believe I got through. That was a lot of numbers to push.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's, you know, but it allows me to be able to see people's waiting, where before it was, you know, I wouldn't know if I needed to try to get off because people are waiting or what. So, and I can bring in multiple people too. That's pretty cool.
So can people hear me now?
Yeah, you're live. It's
I'm
just,
live.
yeah, it's delayed. If you're watching on the YouTube as well, it's like 15 seconds behind.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. I got a little audio stuff I got to do.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Plug in my speaker so I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, if you're listening on the phone, it's going to be delayed. It'll be kind of difficult to listen that way.
No, I'm turning off the internet so I can hear you just on the phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it does get confusing.
Okay, now I can hear you a lot better.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Oh,
Yeah,
I just saw that.
Yeah,
you mentioned you had a different theory on the Antichrist. What are you thinking there?
Oh, and you know, I'm no scholar, first of all.
Yeah.
I'm just a regular guy who, you know, I just read the Bible, but the only Bible I've ever had was a King James, so that's where I got the word wineskin.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it from the Bible. I would, you know, talk about that, but anyway, that's all.
Yeah, so there's no doubt in your mind that it was in there as wineskins.
Yeah, because you know, I know it might be in other Bibles now, but I know it was in the King James.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm right with you on that one, 100%.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Because when I picked up my Bible and I looked it up, I just was shocked. I was going, oh, the words in the Bible don't change.
Yeah.
And to be a word like bottles.
Yeah.
Shocking. You know?
Oh, yeah. That's trippy, man, for sure.
But, and then, you know, to the Mandela stuff, which hit me about 2 years ago, was like the Kit Kat bar, Looney Tunes, Oscar Mayer, all that stuff. You know, I was going, well, maybe, and this was just after a surgery, a major, you know, heart surgery for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out of that kind of confused, and the doctor said that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
They said you might feel a little, you know, disoriented for a while. And I said, well, for how long? And they said, oh, you know, a year, 18 months. go, what? You know, and I did. So I was feeling pretty confused after that surgery. It's like I went home, and my home didn't feel like it was my house. You know, and I just things seemed generally strange for quite a while, and it was a roller coaster ride.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so it was in recovery. About a year and a half later, I got the internet, and that's when I started finding this Mandela stuff.
Oh, so you had to discover it all on your own without any way of sort of looking it up right away, huh?
Right, and one of the first videos that I saw was photo helix.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I go, Kit Kat bar. What do you mean it doesn't have a hyphen?
Right.
So it does too. You know.
Yeah, that is a trip.
And then I was going, is this because of my surgery? Is that what? Is this part of that confusion from my surgery? I just couldn't, figure it out. Like I said, until a year and a half later, I get online and start looking stuff up. That's what I found was that photo helix, and then the girl from Australia, two girls. Oh, I can't remember her name now.
I don't know that I know
the
her.
next channel. Aren't they from Australia? I'm terrible at names.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone from Australia. They might be though.
But anyways, it was these two girls, and they were talking about the maps changing in Europe because she had flown from Australia to Europe before, and now the distance has changed, the time it takes has changed.
Yes.
And I was going, wow, this is weird stuff. This is how I've been feeling. I went right from this confusion after the surgery thing to into this Mandela thing, and this has been now 2 years of that. And I go, yeah, I just the map changes, all those things. Those are big things. These aren't just memory changes. They're physical world changes.
Yeah. Undeniable once you see it,
Yeah. And how many people aren't noticing?
Which is equally as creepy.
Exactly. And then the next channel I found was yours. And it was funny because I was going, oh yeah, I was feuding with one of my neighbors, new neighbors. They were being nitpicky and over the fence and stuff. And then I turn on your channel and I meet you, and I go, God, why can't I have a neighbor like this guy Shane? I go, he's a cool guy. I go, I got to watch his stuff. And then you were the first one that talked more about the Bible changes too. And that's when I looked some of that up and was just shocked by it all.
Yeah, I've had people say that just having the positive outlook on it was something that helped them out a lot about the Mandela effect. Because I've always, I wondered at first. I wasn't fearful about it, but at some point, I just felt like, man, this is a good thing. I thought it might be a bad thing at first, but the more I looked into it, and I felt like, I feel like this is some sort of wake-up call or something, because it was that way for me personally. And as soon as I even considered it being the other way, like a positive wake-up call type thing, my life just turned around. 180 degrees from the way it felt at that time.
Yeah, it's well, for me, being so Bible-based and being, I absolutely believe in creation and God, mm-hmm. and that He's creator and that stuff, and that's why I believe that from when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need a Bible to tell me that there was a God. But when I and I never even read the Bible until I was 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I just believed in my heart, and I knew. I mean, we went to church for a couple of years when I was a kid, and I was baptized about 12 years old. We had a little bit of church there, but that was it. And I don't even remember what they said. I was just a 11, 12-year-old kid, not paying any attention to it.
Right.
But as I got older, then I was more curious about it. And I had girlfriends that believed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had influence from that.
Yeah.
But then one day it was, I had some Jehovah's Witnesses come by. And he gave me a Bible. And I went to work one day, and on my boss's desk was a Bible, and I asked I was self-employed. I worked for a carpet store.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys call him the boss, but he's not really my boss. He had a Bible, and I said, "Mark, do you read the Bible?" And he says, "No." And he kind of laughed, and I said, "Well, why you got a Bible on your desk?" And he says, "Oh, some Mormons or Jehovah's gave it to me. I don't want it. If you want it, you can have it." That's when I took it home, and that was the King James Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time where I got a King James, and that's when I started reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was about 4 years old. And that's the only Bible I had read. And then it's 20 years later, since when the Mandela hit. But like I said, now my memory has been altered because of that surgery. And it is harder for me to remember scripture, like certain verses or numbers and stuff, or even the book that it comes from. I remember things that were said in it, but I don't remember exactly who said it as well as I used to.
Right. Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's hard for me to relate to it. I had the surgery, and I'm going, how come everybody else is thinking the same thing? I said, did you guys all have heart surgeries too?
Yeah, and you must have thought, Suso, right?
I'm not sure.
Suso, he wrote a book, but he was talking about how sometimes people will either go through traumatic surgery or, something traumatic in their life, a near-death experience, or something that's, close to death, but maybe they weren't actually injured. Maybe they just avoided an accident that would have been really bad, and then they jump timelines. That's one of the things he talks about in his book. It's a really fascinating book he has, but he's a YouTuber, Suso. And you can it's a really good read for anyone Mandela Effect that you'll enjoy, just the perspective of considering other things. But that was one of the things. He had fallen down some steps and he got impaled, but on this like a leg of a table. But when he got up and turned the light on, the table had been moved and he hadn't really fallen on it, and he felt like he jumped into another timeline where he wasn't killed, and that's why things were a little bit different. So I thought it was an interesting perspective. I was just kind of wondering if you ever went along that line of thinking when you were trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly how I feel.
Right.
Especially that first year and a half to 2 years after the surgery, I really felt like I jumped some kind of timeline or to a different dimension. I said, what the hell happened? I said, did I die in that surgery? Now I'm in another, it's like, and what if you kept living? What would your life have been like? And now I'm living that.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff runs through your head.
Definitely. Yeah, I could totally see why that would pop in your head, because when you see things are different, it just feels like a different place.
before the surgery, I was going, I hope I have a near-death experience. Maybe I'll go see God or see an angel or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, no, none of that happened. I didn't see white lights or anything like that. Just had this big confusion. I said, you know, the surgery went well. My heart's fine. But my head something was different.
Yeah.
Everything felt a little bit different. And there was nobody to talk to either. Because I'm single, I live alone, and my family all lives in other cities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a lot of people around. And thank God that's when I found the stuff on YouTube, because I can't remember where I was. I was in the store. Oh, the other one was OxyClean.
Oh, yeah.
I was walking, went shopping, and I seen OxyClean, and I go, what? I thought that was spelt with a Y. And the other thing, I'm dyslexic, so I have trouble with spelling words. I was going, oh, that's more of that surgery stuff. So I was going around thinking this was the surgery. I started noticing like OxyClean, Kit Kat bar, the other things before I got on the internet. That's the point, is that it didn't happen because of the internet.
Yeah.
I was experiencing, I was starting to see some of these things on my own. It was only when I got the internet, then I started looking, or just kind of stumbled into it somehow.
Yeah, it is.
Calling it the Mandela effect.
Yeah, it is a trip, because I noticed a few things. I often talk about, like, when I grew up, they were now or laters candy, and I remember being in the store and looking at them like, oh, I wonder if they got sued or something. Why did they change it to now and laters? And then when I saw Funyuns, I'm like, what Funyuns? What's this all about? So there was a few that I noticed too before I was really hip to what was going on with the Mandela effect, but I just had no idea, you know. And then I'm like, oh, now all this stuff makes sense to me now. Why things are different. It's not just because, you know, you think of a natural thing. You're like, well, they must have changed the name for, maybe there was a lawsuit or something along those lines, you know, and they had to change it for some reason, some kind of marketing campaign. But then you see that it never existed the way you remember it, and it's like, wait a minute. I know it was this other way, you know?
Right, because a lot of products, you know, can easily be written off as marketing changes and stuff. So, you know, you go like, well, I can't really prove it one way or the other.
Yeah.
There's nothing, it's hard to find evidence for it.
Yeah.
And seeing these other people, meeting these other people doing the same thing, trying to find out, yeah, and I'm going, so I got a couple big theories on what the cause is.
Let's hear it, man. I'm always down to hear some new theories.
If you want to hear it.
Yeah, definitely.
The first one's simple, because I'm Bible-based. I believe it's God causing it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of reasons, because things like the blood moons and that kind of stuff towards the Bible side,
mm-hmm.
of it being signs of God's or Jesus' return, because of what the Bible says. It says all these strange events will be going on. Well, maybe that's what it is, but the Mandela effect is really signs of God showing.
Right.
Well, and that's pretty much what I lean to, because of the Bible being related to this. What else could change words, literally change the words in a book?
Yeah, and print.
Yeah, it's something, yeah, it's hard evidence. It's not like a movie. That's what I say about the movie stuff. I could easily misremember the words of a movie.
Right.
Or the word, in the words of a song. Get that wrong, so there's no way to say if it's true or not.
Yeah.
But hard facts would be something like a book that the words in the book, like a constitution or something,
Yeah.
It's been around for hundreds of years, and lots of people know it's how it's written.
Yeah.
And to see changed. Or things like maps, they were hard to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely one. I thought South America was south of America.
Yeah.
But no, it's east of America now.
Right.
It's east of Florida.
Yeah, that is pretty trippy.
I go, that's way over there, man. I don't remember it being, I thought you went down the panhandle of Mexico and
Yeah.
get there.
But now if you go down, you can follow the point of Florida down, and it actually goes along the west coast of South America instead of, that's a trip. I mean, that's what I mainly look at is how South America looks like it's pointing, because on some of the residue maps, you'll see it's more in the middle or even to the east side of South America, whenever it's residual evidence of how it used to be. But now it's clearly pointing down the west coast of South America, and it's like, what? That's a trip.
Okay, so I'll go on to this other theory. I told my Sky 5D, if he's listening, he might be lurking too tonight. I told him this one, and it's crazy. It's wild. It'll blow everybody away. What I heard was that science has recently learned how to make a digital copy of DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's DNA can now be copied in digital form, done through retinal scan.
Mm-hmm.
And we got billions of people right now looking at cameras in our face, and we're all being recorded. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think how far the technology can go. But anyway, so imagine that everybody's been scanned on this whole planet, that some major event happened, an asteroid or something crashed into the planet and blew it up, everything blown to smithereens.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of years in the future, somebody comes along and finds the fragments and finds a box, a black box,
Mm-hmm.
floating in space, with all the digital copies of all the people from that planet.
All right. Somebody plugged it in.
So they reconstituted, got the printer out, and printed up a whole new world, a digital world, digital copy,
Yeah.
each and every one of us. And that's what we are. We're all that digital copy.
Yeah, and I've heard similar thoughts like that, and I don't see that as
That's
being
pretty
much
wild.
different as the whole simulation theory to begin with. That maybe the Big Bang was someone turning on some kind of cosmic computer somewhere, and here we are.
Well, that theory fits in with all the people who think that everything is digital, like the digital sun. It's not a real sun, it's a digital.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all talking that the whole matrix of this reality is really a digital, works in the same principle.
Right. Yeah, totally.
I don't go along with it. It's a sci-fi kind of theory that
Yeah.
it just clicked with me when I heard that this was possible,
Mm-hmm.
that we can digital copies of DNA. In other words, like say my heart, maybe my heart quit, it gets reprint up a new one from my digital copy.
Okay, and we're really not far from that with the way we have these 3D printers and stuff now,
Yeah. Right. That's what I was saying. The technology is growing so fast.
Yeah.
That is feasible.
Well, let me ask you about this, Bob. I know you mentioned God being the one behind it. I know a lot of the channels I used to watch. I don't really watch them now because they're sort of kind of fixated on this is the devil or Satan doing all of this, and but even from that point of view, if that's I respect that people think that or whatever, but if there's a sovereign God that can control everything, and he's all knowing and he's in control of everything, do you think Satan could pull a fast one over on God, or do you think God, if this is indeed something bad, do you think God has allowed it to happen? So ultimately, either way, God's allowed it to happen or God's caused it to happen, but it's not like the devil pulled a fast one over on God and he's deceiving people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the story of Job, where God allowed Satan to tempt him.
Mm-hmm.
That life is a test.
Yeah.
That we are tempted in a lot of ways in believing certain things and doing certain things. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's just life. But I see it all as losing points or gaining points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I don't really believe in the cast into hell or whatever.
Right.
To me, it just means the grave.
Yeah.
That we still die, we go to the grave. My basic theory is that when Jesus comes, he resurrects everybody, or a certain people. I mean, this is what the Bible says. What people believe is up to them.
Well, it's funny that I think it's in Daniel too that he says that everyone gets resurrected, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting death. So it's almost like you get resurrected to be annihilated, if you will. And so, but that still goes against the whole torture forever, because if everlasting death would be that you die and you never wake up, it wouldn't be that you're alive and you're tortured forever. So, even a lot of what they teach is still not really biblical when you start digging into the scriptures, because everlasting death to me would be you die and it lasts forever, right?
Well, the question is, there's two resurrections.
Right.
There's one when Jesus comes, and there's one at the end of the 1,000 years.
Right.
So for me, that was a big question. I go, well, why is that? Why it always talks about the two groups, the separation of the sheep and the goat,
mm-hmm.
and the good and the bad, all of this stuff. Well, I mean, if you believe it, that's how I perceive life. It's all a challenge between doing good and evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm reading Ronnie's comment, which brings up a pretty good point. The choice is to end consciousness or not. So you could almost see that whole thing as symbolic for you can decide to wake up or you can decide to stay asleep in a way too, Are you resurrected like born again, so to speak?
So my theory there on that was that when you're cast in hell, so to speak, you stay there through the 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you will be resurrected, let's say, if you're the bad guy, right?
Right.
I am. I'm going to go into, live there in 1,000 years. I'm not going to get to live with Christ. But I don't know. Nobody knows.
All right.
Just trying to decipher the story.
Right.
So, and that's hard. There's so much involved. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Everybody sees it so differently, even when you read it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think about the Antichrist? You made a comment that you had a theory about Antichrist. What do you think Antichrist is?
Yeah, I think what people believe it is a big Hollywood point of view. It's a big fantasy
Mm-hmm.
that it's some guy that's going to come and take over the world and
Right.
some great leader that start a one world religion.
Right,
Well,
because they'll point at
that's
every
all-
president. They'll say every president, like from, Bush, the Bushes,
Right.
Obama, Trump, they're all the Antichrist from someone's perspective. And it's like, well, you guys say that about every president,
Right. Their
This is
names
it.
add up to 666 and all that.
Right.
I go, well, actually, the Bible says it's the number of a beast.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You got to figure out what a beast means. There's all kinds of stuff, and that's where all this perceptions get all skewed.
Yeah.
To me, it's very simple. The word Antichrist is only in the Bible 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
It says specifically what it is. It doesn't say anything about it being a world leader, somebody taking over the world. All of this is the fantasy and the lies that have been told about the Bible.
Well, you know where it all comes from. That I got a book a while back. It was from one of the authors was Tim LaHaye, which is one of the people that worked on the whole Left Behind series. But he had a book called Charting the End Times. And I remember I was deep in Christianity at the time when I read this book, but I just couldn't figure out how the story, this whole idea of being left behind in the rapture and all this was put together. So I saw him on TBN or something promoting his book, Charting the End Times. So I get the book, I'm reading through it, and I'm looking at all the scriptural references that they built this whole narrative on, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. They built this whole narrative on these few scriptures. And I mean, I could see it playing out so many other different ways from those same scriptures, but yet they kind of came up with this narrative and they were preaching it as if it was the gospel. And it was really lacking as far as, scriptural, having the scriptures to back up what they were trying to say, the way things were going to play out. And I remember it being an eye-opening experience for me, because I'm like, wow, this is kind of flimsy. You know what I mean? As far as the theory goes.
Right. It's like the word rapture, it's all this talk about rapture, but yet the word doesn't even exist in the Bible.
Right.
Or the word Trinity. It's the same thing with the word Trinity for me.
Yeah.
That it's a concept. I understand the concept, but I don't think that that's what the Bible is saying.
Right.
The same thing with the rapture. I go, it's exactly the opposite in the Bible. To me, the rapture is of the wicked.
Mm-hmm.
That's who gets taken out when Jesus comes. He sends his angels, and they gather up the wicked and cast them into the grave, hell,
mm-hmm.
and then the righteous live and rule with Christ for the 1,000 years. Then judgment comes.
Right.
So that's the thing to me. I go, yeah, that's not Judgment Day. It's always been called Redemption Day.
Right.
Judgment Day is at the end of the 1,000 years. That's when it says the rest of the dead will be resurrected unto judgment. Now, what happens with that, I don't know. I mean, the Bible kind of doesn't go any further than that.
Yeah.
After 1,000 years. I think that's the big thing to me. The big picture that I get is that the rule of Christ coming to this earth.
Right.
That's what I've been waiting for. That's what I call the big event.
Right. Well, one of the things with the whole Mark of the Beast thing that sort of came to mind, I guess in the last year when I've been looking into this was I was just thinking about like as we talk about ascending and sort of going to this higher density, um, it's when you think of beast. If I were just to say the beast of the field, you would think the animals of the field. And so if you think of a man that's acting like a beast, you would probably naturally think a man that's acting like an animal, or a man that's acting below the density level he should be acting at. I mean, if you're like an evolved human being with, you should just be acting like a human with, treating other people like humans and things like that. And you would think that you would be acting at a certain level of non-animal like. And then when you see the problems of the world, a lot of them seem like it's from people that are still sort of acting like animals, right? Using violence and stealing and things like this.
With the Bible, is it that it uses so many words metaphorically.
Right.
The Old Testament, in Genesis, it talks about the beast, but it just means animal.
Right.
1,000 sheep and horses and all that, and then it's used in a general sense.
Right.
But Revelations, when it's talking about beast, we don't know exactly what that means, and that's where you have to get deep into translating words and to understand how it was meant metaphorically.
Right, or what the original word was. Like the word hell was, it was used, if you really look into the word, how the word hell shows up, it was used 4 different ways, but, not all of the ways point to what we think of as eternal damnation in a fiery pit,
Yeah, so overall, there's a lot of confusion. Nobody knows the truth. We all believe something, everything a little differently, a little of this, a little of that. But I think that's what Jesus described as the sign.
Yeah.
These are the things, like what will be going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. It's like really being, because it takes a certain level of honesty to say what you just said right there, that we really don't know. And that's sort of my whole premise with this whole channel is that, don't get so sure of what you think you know that you start judging other people because of it and treating other people bad because you think you figured it out and they're not listening to you, when really none of us know. I mean, if it was a debate, if it was clear cut and dry, then yeah, we wouldn't be having the discussion about trying to figure it out,
Yeah, nobody, we can all guess. That's all I do.
Right. But we can also all love each other still, and respect everyone's point of view. And I think that's where the majority of people on the planet sort of miss the mark, is that they lie to themselves.
And we got a lot of people that are, sensitive, big-hearted people like you and all this group, and we're sensitive to a lot of the corruption and a lot of the evil that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And we'd like it all to go away.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I believe is the purpose of Jesus' return.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I lean to. I mean, that's what I want to happen.
Yeah.
I want him to come and straighten it all out and for it to not be a secret anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think about the idea I present about, instead of Christ coming back as a person, he comes back as sort of like the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit fell upon the people? Because, I think of the scripture where Jesus says, we'll perform miracles like he does, and greater things will we do. That's sort of the thing that always points me back to, maybe we're talking about the power of Christ returning, and us all, we're supposed to follow Jesus. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's sort of taught in churches that, well, you're supposed to just, put your cares on him and trust that he did it all for you. But what if he showed us the way that we're supposed to actually follow and do? What do you think of that idea?
Exactly. I mean, when we read it, we picture a physical, return, him coming in the flesh, but it could be, just in spirit or in a different form or just a ball of light for all I know, like it describes in the Old Testament.
Right.
So again, we don't know. That's why people get so excited about their, that they're right about this or that. Like I said, when it comes to prophecy, nobody knows. We're just trying to guess, and it will happen.
Yeah.
And we can tell by those signs, all these signs we see. This is what he told us to watch for.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I just like the word Antichrist, I think it's real simple. It says what it is. What Antichrist is simply someone who doesn't believe in the Father and Son.
Mm-hmm.
All the Bible says.
Right.
There's no great big story.
And that would really be the same with anybody who rejects the Christ consciousness too, though, it says the Father and Jesus said the Father and I are one, and when you're in him, he's in you, and it's like we're all one. So it's sort of like that same concept that if you're rejecting the Christ, you are rejecting the Father and Son. You're not becoming one with them, and you're anti-Christ at that point, right? So, I mean, it's sort of different perspectives of the same idea.
Well, see, I'm just looking at it in the literal sense that it means simply, it just says what it is. It's just somebody who doesn't. Jesus said there was many even in his day.
Mm-hmm.
Why are people looking for just one Antichrist when he already said there's many of them?
Right.
What it is, it's a blending of Scripture. It's from Paul's writings about the son of perdition, who stands in the temple of God, and that's a prophecy. Again, they're metaphoric words. We don't know exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
But people get, when they recite it, they say, instead of saying the son of perdition, they put in the word Antichrist.
Right.
Means the same thing, but I go, no, it's two different words. If it was the same thing, it would be the same word.
Right. There's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, and it's from just people repeating it and all that, and that's where all the confusion. It's not. I don't even see it so much as lies as just confusion through translation, through stories being told over and over, and kind of getting it wronger and wronger.
Yeah.
And it drifts away from the truth, but we're still can see a little bit of it.
Right.
Yeah, and like I said, it's mixing up different books, different scripture.
Yeah.
There's so many writers. There's 66 different writers of the Bible.
And then just how words mean different things in different cultures, like. I think of that movie, Back to the Future, when he says, wow, this is heavy. And he says, hey, you keep saying everything's heavy. Is there something wrong with gravity in the future? And it's like, no, that's just like how we say things. And, we have so many things like that, like the word hell, like my day was hell. And, if you're reading something 1,000 years from now and you're like, what, there was hell that day? What happened,
Right, like I said, in the future, the Bible will be translated. It'll say, Jesus and his homies went up to his crib, get some grub.
Right. Right, and they'll think they're eating bugs or something, right? And they're like, what's going on there? He was a baby inviting people over to eat bugs, Now,
more on the spiritual side for me, is when I started reading the King James Bible, that's when it hit me. That's when I really started getting those confirmations about what I was reading when I was reading it. This is what I was getting, and we're talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I commented that I believe the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found in 1967, that's a key year,
Mm-hmm.
It confirmed the accuracy of the King James translation. My point to that was that those metaphoric words, you can't change those. You can't change words like lion and lamb.
Yeah.
Because those are big, powerful words because they have that literal meaning, but they also have a supernatural or a spiritual meaning.
Right.
And I said, when I started studying the Bible, I go, yeah, somebody needs to make a book on the meaning of like water, wine, bread, lamb, all these metaphoric words in the Bible and what they think they mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's stories in there. And somebody else was mentioning that. I said another study I did was the 12 names of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the 12 names and you translate those back to the Hebrew language, and those Hebrew names have meaning. They're like God's laughter, Jacob or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Means God's laughter, right?
You're right.
All the, and Levi, I can't remember them. I wrote it all down and stuff. That was years ago. But it tells a little story. Then when you write it out, and then I thought about it. I go, it says something like God's wrestling with humanity, and you go, whoa, that's like a little story in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that before. I can't remember it now either.
Yeah, so it's the names of the 12 tribes.
Yeah.
There's the so we have these names, or our names don't have meaning. A lot of they're just key things that you study along the way, not just reading the Bible, but you really have to look at the history of, well, we talked about that briefly before.
Yeah.
The books of Paul. I think the Bible would have been a lot better off if they hadn't added his book.
I agree with you. And I often say that to people. I'm like, look, think about church right now. If you were to remove the Gospels from the Bible or remove the letters of Paul from the Bible, which one would affect the church right now the most? And the truth of the matter is, removing Paul's books from the Bible would probably get rid of, I don't know, probably 75% of the different denominations that disagree on what Paul was actually trying to say. The interpretation of what he was saying, whether it was tongues or wearing hats in church or predestination, all of these things that have caused all these different things. And, when I was growing up, my mom would say, the devil is the author of confusion. And when I see Paul brought confusion to the church, I think it must have been, either he was deceived or purposely deceiving. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I got a lot of information on that. My sister, I have a sister that married a reverend.
Mm-hmm.
He was an high school history teacher. He's a smart guy, and he knows the Bible pretty darn well. And I learned a lot from him.
Right.
But he's basically on that same note. That's where we came together, too, was on the books of Paul.
Right.
I mean, I just think it should be in a separate book. It
Yeah.
shouldn't have been added to the scripture.
Yeah, and they were letters.
Like you're saying, yeah. A lot of the confusion comes from, a lot of the denominations and the separation comes from all of the things that he said.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
It would be a lot. Yeah, we would follow Jesus a lot closer if we just read his words,
Exactly.
his books.
I completely
accounts.
agree. Yeah.
Oh, and the name things. It's like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are English names.
Mm-hmm.
Those are and it all, we lose a little bit each time.
Yeah.
Lose a little more information. I think, back to the basics, the message that Jesus taught was more about love and just living your life in a simpler way. But it's our technology and all of that, I think, is what's going to eat this all up. So that is the beast to me.
Yeah. And you know what, I often wondered, well, even more so recently with all the emergence of AI and all that, if Jesus didn't, because I've been finding I've been having to do this with like descriptions to my videos and things like that to avoid the censorship with the AI or whatever, is basically speaking in parables. And it made me wonder, I'm like, well, you know, they said Jesus spoke in parables to sort of, you know, get beyond the religious leaders of the time, but maybe it was the AI back then too. You never know, you know. Running the Matrix, the AI.
The AI stuff scares me.
Oh, it's
because I got this little tablet, and I know it listens to me. I was sitting here, a neighbor come over the other day, and we were talking race cars and stuff, and I mentioned slot cars, and then I go back after he leaves. I get on the computer, the tablet. The first video I come up, there's an ad. Next up is about slot cars.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk. I didn't. It wasn't on.
Yeah.
You know, it's just here in the living room.
Yeah. Totally, man. I've seen it happen. It's been doing that for quite a few years now, too.
So yeah, I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's certainly taken over our lives in the last 20 years.
Yeah. But it's always listening. I tell people they're always listening. I mean, I'm not ever worried about anything I'm talking about, but, you know, I can definitely see. I know they're listening for, you know, they've got too much on their plate to listen to anything I'm talking about, but I can see it coming up being handy for if someone's planning something and they're just in the room talking. Their phones are listening. They're hearing their plans, and the algorithm will catch it, flag it, send it to the NSA or whatever, or you know, to the actual person rather than the AI, and they'll review it and like, no, they're really just talking about a game where they're doing these things or whatever, and then they'll have to figure it out. But yeah, I think a lot of things get thwarted by the fact that it's always listening. You know. It is creepy, though. Yeah.
I was going to touch on Nathan Sanders.
Right.
You know, last year when he came on, or I don't know how long he'd been around, when I first discovered him through your channel or, you know, however, I was amazed at the stuff he was saying. I was amazed at all the stuff he'd been through. I go, again, it was back to that, you know, kind of the near-death experience for him that set off a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've often thought the same thing, yeah. That's one of the things why when he said he would ask silently in his own mind, but I don't know if you saw the sort of the video where I was backing up, talking about if we're living in this world of telepathy or whatever, you can see how the AI, you're talking on the AI line if it's sort of running the matrix, and you know they're sending thoughts to your brain about things, and then you say things in your brain that are thoughts. You're really talking on that line. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go on with Nathan.
No, it was just that with the music stuff, and it was hitting me hard. All of a sudden, you know, this was around the blood moon again, a Passover and stuff. And I'm going, look at all this stuff. The stars are lining up. You know, all these are all signs to me from the Bible.
Yeah.
The confusion and where the world is at today.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I just go, yeah, I think, you know, he could show up anytime.
Yeah.
But I believe it's going to happen on a holy day, just like it did before. All the events that he fulfilled were holy days. So
Yeah.
the blood moons being on holy days and all that stuff. This was all the signs and the stars, and Earth, the moon, and the star signs, and something I knew much about, but certainly interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've often thought the same thing, like looking into the works of like Jordan Maxwell, and he would talk about the things that the Bible was based off of the stars, and I thought, man, you could easily say it was the other way around. The stars were based off of the story. Like, I mean, if you're thinking of this creator God putting the stars in the sky, then he can make the three wise men from the east heading, towards the Virgin, being the three belts, Orion, or, three stars in Orion's belt heading towards where the sun's going to rise, and Virgo. And, there's so much in there that plays out the story. But, if you're really objective about it, you can say, well, you know what, it works both ways. I mean, it could have easily been the other way around, too. So that's why I don't write any of that stuff off as, being the definitive answer to why the stars and the story of Christ line up in so many different ways, because it could be, you don't know which came first, right?
Right. Yeah, it's just a matter of perspective. I mean, it's like, is the world spinning around the sun, or is the sun spinning around the world? It's just a matter of which way you're looking at it.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
The same thing is going on either way.
Yeah.
Something's moving.
Yeah. That's true. And it's certainly not a reason to divide over. That's the one of the things I saw with so many different theories going around. I'm like, well, let's not divide over it. We got plenty of reasons to divide right now that we're trying to do away with. Let's not create more reasons to create an us and them.
I put a lot of trust in the Bible as being a true story and accurate. And like I said, I believe the proof was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Finding that was just a huge weight in the scale that book is accurate.
Yeah, I've often said that to people. I think we got exactly what we were supposed to get, with the Bible.
Yeah, the story is that Jesus was going to return. This guy called Jesus, I believe his name is Yeshua, pronounced Yeshua or something like that.
Yeah.
Hebrew. But we understand it in English.
Yeah.
That's a big problem in itself.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when it says ask anything in my name and we're not saying it. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had. I said, I know Jesus has a name, but does God have a name?
Yeah.
No, I didn't even know. That's when I started reading the Bible. I go, I didn't even know if God had a name.
Yeah.
That's the connect to Nathan's story.
Right.
Is that I was telling him about there is a name of God in the Bible, and it's only the King James Bible.
Yeah.
Why do all other translations say Lord, but only the King James says Yah? Now, here's the strange Mandela, the connection to all of it. But I remembered the word spelled Psalm 68:4, says we will sing praise to his name, Yah, A-E-H. I think that's a Mandela, because now it says J-A-H.
Ah. Yeah, which is that difference. Why do they always add the J's in there? You hear that the J's didn't exist, but I'm just taking someone's word for that too. But, I heard Jesus was his name was more along the lines of Joshua, the same name Joshua came from, which was either Yeshua or Yehoshua or something along those lines. Yeah.
If it's you spell a word like that with 2 A's versus 1 A, that makes a difference. If there's a dot over the A or under the A, that's a difference. They have these little pronunciation points.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. So we don't understand this in English. We have to go study Hebrew and learn their language and learn their idioms and their dots and tittles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work when it comes to name things. So that's, back to that connection.
Right, and that really gets back to, excuse me, the whole idea of the way, I think it was in John 8, I brought it up before, but the way Yahweh or Jehovah, who we considered to be God, or the Jews considered that to be God, was not who Jesus called Father, which was in John 8 when he talks to the religious leaders saying that their father is the devil. So Jesus actually calls that person the devil in John 8. So I think there's a lot when you get to looking into it and you ignore doctrine, there's a lot more that you find in there. That's why I say the Bible's, I think, what we were supposed to get. I was able to find myself way out of the church through the Bible and just having a deeper understanding of it. So, for people it's like, well, the Bible's the only authority, I think you can find your way out of religion and the lies with just the Bible. So, on one sense, I think, we've gotten exactly what we're supposed to get. But people just don't dig. They don't dig deep enough,
That's another good example is that there's 3 words right there. The devil,
yeah,
Satan, and Lucifer.
Right.
3 different words, but they mean similar things, but it comes down to more specific. And this is something I did a word study about God's name. I wanted to know what his name was, and that fits down a huge study. I just had no idea what I was going to go look up and find, and all these stories about how the Jews don't let you pronounce it. His name was removed from the Bible because it's too sacred to say. I go, well, why does it say where 2 or more gathered in his name?
Mm-hmm.
There he is. How are we going to gather in his name if we don't know what it is?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I just simply said, I see things in simple ways too.
Yeah.
And I go, so what is his name? What's his name? I want to say, I don't want to say whatever, Lord.
Yeah, because then that has a
Actually
completely different meaning.
Right, and we see it in that some things get built up like that too. A big hocus-pocus story. I go, I think of God as just like a person.
Yeah.
7 candlesticks. In Revelations, there's 7 candlesticks around God's throne that represent the spirits of God.
Yeah.
Those spirits are emotions. Same thing with demons. Demons are emotions. You look up the names. You can figure this stuff out by looking up the names.
Yeah.
Jesus cast out, and this is another Mandela effect. Jesus cast out 7 demons from Mary Magdalene. Look up older translations that tell you the names of those demons.
Mm-hmm.
When you, again, translate them, just like with the tribe names, you see the meaning of the name. The meaning of the names were like sadness, loneliness, gluttony, lust, depression. Those names of those demons are.
Yeah. And Sherry's making a good point. She says, what if it's the chakras, the 7 chakras that he cleared her chakras for, I mean, there's so many different ways you could look at it if you're open-minded, you know what I mean? Was it demons or was it thought forms? A lot of people think demons are nothing more than thought forms that we put out there. We put these negative thought forms out there, and they go out into the ethereal realm or whatever and sit there and bother us, and things that we put out come back to haunt us, so to speak, but it's really our own doing. So I think these are all interesting perspectives. I don't really know, but I can see it you know, it seems I've hit my head before, and you know, you raise up under the hood and hit your head, and you feel like you're being attacked by the devil for a second there, you know, or somebody is attacking you, but no, you did it to yourself. But it feels like you're being attacked for a moment, right? Like, somebody hit me? What's going on, you know?
Well, that's all. And another point on the name thing is there's in Revelation it says the 12 names of the apostles on the 12 gates around the city that comes down out of heaven.
Yeah.
There's 12 foundations with the names of the 12 tribes.
Right.
And then on the 12 gate is the names of the apostles.
Hmm.
They're listed. And I go, see, and Paul's name is not in there.
All right.
His name he's not an apostle.
Right. A lot of people don't know that. He didn't really walk with Jesus and stuff. He wasn't one of the apostles.
Not till 70 or 100 years, 70 years later.
Right.
He never lived with him or knew him. He might have known him when he was a kid or heard of him when he was a kid, but I don't know. And that's the things about the details of the story. A lot of times the details just aren't there.
Yeah.
You just build up, somebody tries to fill in the blanks, and I think that's what the Holy Roman Empire did with some of these scriptures, added to them the letters of Paul and stuck them in the Bible.
Yeah.
So I don't think them. And like I told you, Paul is a preacher, but Jesus is my teacher.
Right.
So Paul I see from a different perspective. He's nobody special to me.
Right.
Although, he is, a good guy. He's the most repentant guy in the world. He went out and slaughtered millions of people, or tens of thousands or something.
Yeah.
Worshiping on the wrong day. And it's all that arguing and fighting over.
Yeah.
You're supposed to worship God. Me, I'm a Sabbath keeper, but it's inside my spirit, not something I do in my flesh.
Yeah.
That's something I try to tell people. And the purpose of understanding the Sabbath day is so you'll understand his calendar, his cycles, and like with the blood, and it's connected to the blood moons and the stars and the moon and the signs in the sky are the signs of his return.
Mm-hmm.
By following that is how you see it. If you don't know what a Sabbath is, or you don't keep, follow that calendar a little bit, you won't notice that those blood moons were on a holy day.
Right.
That's what made it significant.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into the Seventh-day Adventist church for a while before I got out of Christianity, and they had a lot of really neat perspectives on, they actually believe like that was the mark of the beast, that some of the people in the Seventh-day Adventist churches that, the people that worship on Sunday were worshiping the beast, and that the truth.
Everybody's got a theory.
What's that?
Everybody's got their own theories.
Oh, right. But I just thought some of the way they connected prophecy, I'm like, wow. And it's like, I think they pointed out like the seal of God in Revelations. It talks about they had the seal of God on their head, and then they pointed to a scripture where it said the ones who kept the Sabbath day holy had the seal of God on their head, and they had scriptural stuff to back it up. But as soon as you kind of go through a number of denominations that have pretty different views on the way things work out, and you can objectively say, you know what, that could be true. I don't know. But, I don't feel like God's going to burn us forever if we don't pick the right one either, I think we're all sort of on our own journey.
Yeah. I think generally people focus too much on the negative and on the bad, evil. Oh, God, I've stolen, I've lied, I've cheated, I've done all these things wrong, too.
Yeah.
I've even committed adultery on purpose to get back at a friend.
Yeah.
You screwed me over, so, okay, I'll screw your wife, dude.
All right.
That's bad. That's how I was.
That's how we've all done things like that, though, that we're not proud of, you know. So.
And that's the focus. To me, the Bible says when Jesus comes, he brings the reward for the good things we did. He overcome the punishment of our sin.
Yeah.
That's been forgiven. But we need to focus on the good.
Yeah. A lot of us need to forgive ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like...
That's the loving your neighbor. When you do the good things, he'll reward you. If you're a Sabbath keeper, he'll reward you for that. What are we going to get? I don't know.
Yeah.
More stones in our crown.
Right.
I got 6 rubies and you only got 2.
Right.
You know, big deal. I mean, I've got a sense of humor.
Right.
The difference between good and bad might be real thin.
Right.
It might be just gold stars on your calendar.
Totally. Yeah, but I think a lot of us are just carrying around so much baggage, and that, you know, we really need to figure out how to overcome our own unforgiveness, not only towards others, but even towards ourselves, you know. Because I do view God like a caring father, where if you stumble and fall, just like any of us would pick up our child that's learning to walk. Because if you think about how ignorant we are compared to the knowledge of God, then, you know, and you think about a little child that can barely talk, trying to walk, and, you know, you're going to treat them at the level that they're at, and you don't punish them for falling from trying to walk. Usually the fall hurts them enough, right?
Yeah, and it's just, he's got it all figured out. It's all happening on his schedule and his plan.
Yeah.
But and I was just getting to the point where I thought life was pretty boring. And then the Mandela thing happened, you know.
Yeah, me
well,
too.
there's one I didn't see coming.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, it was like I woke up in a sci-fi movie or something. So things have gotten really exciting, and the path I've ended up on is one that I'm super happy with, and I'll just keep on trucking, you know. It's just great, all of us coming together like this.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all sensing. I know all these people who are sensitive, and me myself too, a little bit.
Yeah, empaths and stuff, yeah.
I feel that coming too, and I get excited when holy days come now, and I go, it could be this year. We do know the day and the time, but we don't know the year. That's what the Jews and the Hebrews, they've said that forever. They've known this forever. It's Christianity that's so far behind because they believe all these fantasies.
Yeah.
All this, you know, all got mixed up. Like you said, the church. The only way you're going to figure it out is get out of that church.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. You know what I mean.
Yeah. It's kind of the lazy way, though. You're just trusting someone else instead of, I mean, you really got to, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand people that don't have a burning desire to know more and to just be truth seekers. I mean, I don't judge them, but I think at some point you have to have the desire.
I believe what I heard when
Yeah.
I was younger. From 20 to 40 years old, I believed in God, and somebody says, oh, money's the root of all evil. And I said, yeah, okay, you know. But then I finally read the Bible, and I go, wow, it's a little bit different than
Yeah.
when you start seeing it, you start seeing these different things, and it's not as severe as people think, and I think they get focused on the negative rather than the positive. Me, Jesus overcome it so we can ascend to the next level. That's what I look forward to. I'm not so much scared of death. I know it's like a butterfly. And I also have a theory on death. Well, it'll be sad. Well, because nobody will be there. Certain people won't be there. I think that when you wake up from death, everybody will be there. All
Big
gonna
surprise.
happen. Well, it's a quantum theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they call it sleep, right? Jesus called it sleep. Because, when Lazarus was dead, he said, no, he's sleeping. Sleeping. And there's other stories in the Bible that says that when you're sleeping, you know nothing. It's just like going to bed at night. You don't know what happened through the night. You don't know how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Or what happened. The same thing in death. You just go to sleep, and then you'll wake up when he calls us, when he wakes us up. But that event, I believe, will happen to all of us at the same time.
That's interesting. I mean, I think if we're all, we experience it differently as far as the death part of it, but waking up, it could be the same since time is an illusion anyway. So, yeah, we might all just wake up together.
I think God can suspend, it's like a state of suspended animation.
Yeah.
But that's what we do every night.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So when we die, we wake up, and we wake up wherever we go. And it'll seem like an instant to us. Again, that's perspective. From your perspective, it happens in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
But from everybody else's perspective, you go in the grave, and you're there for weeks, months, years, eons.
All right.
Matter to God. There's no time to God.
Yeah.
To us, we do live in a time realm.
Yeah, I definitely hear where you're coming from. In fact, I used to think pretty much right along those lines and stuff until I considered the fact that maybe reincarnation could be something that happens. But, like we said, who knows, really?
Yeah, again, it's theory, and I always ask for Bible evidence. I go, okay, you show me something from the Bible that talks about reincarnation.
Well, actually, there was a couple of places when John the Baptist.
I remember hearing you say.
Yeah, when John the Baptist, when Jesus was talking about John the Baptist was really Elijah, that he had returned and it was Elijah. That was one place that made me consider it. And then the other one was the blind man that was born blind, but the disciples asked Jesus, was he born blind from his own sin or because of his parents? And if he was born blind, then the sin had to have happened before he was born, which would have been a previous life.
That's like a story. I can't figure it out. I don't know what it means.
Right, exactly.
I don't know everything. I can't figure out all of it. If I knew it all, I'd tell you.
Yeah. But I think, like we were saying, the main thing is that you're just open-minded and keep an eye out. You know what I mean? That's all we could really do.
I think, and that's why I say I've learned it. I tell people to get over the arguing part.
Yeah.
Because you don't learn anything in that.
Totally.
You're open to other people's opinions and ideas. I've learned more from other people. Like I said, my sister's husband taught me a little bit. I was in chat groups years ago when all this started, and some lady told me about the rapture.
Yeah.
Oh, the raptures of the wicked. Read Matthew 13, and I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
So I picked up the Bible. I read Matthew 13. It's a parable about the wheat and the chaff.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, and I go, yeah, right there it says, first, Jesus sends his angels, gather the wicked. Word, again, this is where, if you change the words, you won't find this stuff.
All right.
Hey, we have computers. All I do is get on an online computer, or computer Bible.
Yeah.
Like
Bible Hub has an interlinear where you can look at the original words.
And you can just search in a word like wicked.
Yeah.
he'll give you every verse in the Bible, and then that's how you learn what wicked means, or other words like Antichrist.
Yeah.
Or, and
Yeah.
you see what the Bible says it is.
And then it'll also show you what words they used that word for, because sometimes they'll use one word for multiple words from the original. And so, yeah, if anybody wanting to do what we're talking about, if you go to BibleHub.com and just look up a verse and then click interlinear above, you can get to the original word and click on it and see all the other places it shows up and what word it was used for. And it really is. That's what I did with the word hell, to figure out that hell isn't what we're taught in church. It's just do that with the word hell, and you'll be surprised.
The word was Sheol, right?
Yeah, Sheol or Hades, and one's like a trash heap, where they burn trash outside the city, and
burn pit. Right, that's what it's just a burning pit.
Yeah, and then another one, I think Hades was just death, so it really didn't mean anything other than you're just in the grave, dead, and then, so yeah.
The connection is it just means hole in the earth,
yeah,
and that's where they put bodies when you die.
Yeah. So it is an eye-opener, definitely. And that's one of the reasons I say knowledge will increase from the book of Daniel. This is the perfect way. Never before have you been able to do something like that without really knowing Hebrew and being a Jewish scholar that had to learn Hebrew. But now you can do it with the use of a computer.
And you can do it in a matter of seconds. It would have taken scholars weeks, months.
Or even, even decades ago when I had to do it with the Strong's Concordance, it would still take a while to look through and look. Man, it took so long, but now it's so quick with computers.
Yeah, so generally I think a lot of the stories are blown out of proportion and like meaning, some great monster is going to rise up out of the sea and swallow up humanity, and, or I don't know really what it means.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's metaphoric. We're being consumed.
You're like missing the spirit of the message a lot of times when you try to make it too literal, and it's like you kind of miss the whole point, and I see people doing that with YouTube videos all the time too. It's like they get into the technical part of it, and and it's like you're missing the whole point of the video. It was this beautiful video, and you're just getting too deep into science, and you're overthinking it, and we do that as humans. We overthink things. Hey, I'm going to have to wrap this up to get off of, I need
anybody still left?
Oh, yeah. Everybody's still chatting it up and having a good time, man. It's just my wife has to get up early, so I got to wrap it up. But I do. Have you been putting out videos, man? I haven't seen anything in a while, but I get a lot of notifications, so I could have missed it.
Yeah, my tablet's out of memory, and I gotta mess with all that stuff again, the editor, blah blah blah.
I understand.
I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, it is great. Well, lots of love to you, my brother. I really appreciate you chatting with me, man.
Oh yeah, it was great. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and I know I'm bored with my opinion.
Oh, no, I always appreciate it, and I love the topic of the Bible and Jesus and religion in general, with people that are willing to, not try to push any thoughts, their views on you and stuff, so I like hearing people's opinion about stuff. Takes the joy out of it.
That's how I what people are saying on the internet, all this ascension and all these things they're feeling, I believe it's the signs is coming that's causing all this.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's just different perspectives of the same thing. Just have to wait and see, huh?
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your call, buddy, and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, Shane, take care. Love the chat. My tablet shut off, so I wasn't watching.
Oh, no, everybody's great. No problems there.
Okay.
All right. Later, buddy.
Peace, love, and light.
All righty, you too, buddy. Bye-bye.
I see a shame.
That's going to wrap up this episode. I see. I had somebody waiting. So sorry. I will talk to you just when I go off the air and maybe have you come on after Nicola next week. Just sit tight, and I will be right back with you. For everyone else, I'll see you tomorrow night with Eileen for our Power of 8 at 8. And have a good one.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.